Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, the North Rock School District Office of the Superintendent, agenda for the board workshop, the Board of Education, Administration Building, 2400 Willow Street, North Little Rock, Arkansas. Viewers will be able to watch the meeting on YouTube, and the YouTube channel is North Rock School Board Meeting. Dr. Pulaski.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of our Board of Education, our first information item is the 2022 student discipline, which is the first quarter and second quarter data. So I'd like to welcome my colleagues, Dr. Tori Hooper, Deputy Superintendent, Mrs. Lori Smith, Executive Director of Elementary Curriculum, Assessment and Accountability, and Dr. Sharisa White, Executive Director of Secondary Curriculum, Assessment and Accountability, to provide a brief overview.
So good evening, everyone, members of the board, and Dr. Pulaski. Just waiting for the first presentation that we will be speaking on is the 21-22 student discipline, first and second quarter. And we're going to go through about 5 bullet points in terms of the purpose of the student discipline. Although you have a plethora of, Although you have a plethora of data, you have data for all of your campuses. We're only going to focus on about 3 to 4 campuses from the elementary level along with the secondary level. So the first thing that we're going to do is review the makeup of the school district in terms of our demographic to ensure that we target all of our subgroups. Thank you. The next point of delivery that we're going to focus on are the effects of district referrals on academic achievement and create opportunities to strengthen our district supports for student success. And we will also provide a comparison and analysis of our district's 21-22, again, first and second quarter discipline, only focusing on the top 3, provide an overview of what is providing to those increases in positive school discipline, and then share next steps. Again, as a review, and I need to update everyone on our current number. The current number is 8,193 students. That number was taken currently today as far as our current number, which should be 8,193 students. As you can see as a visual, majority of our student population is made up of African Americans, Caucasian, and Hispanics. If the population fell below 10%, we categorize them within the other category. Just a brief note that the state of Arkansas's average graduation rate is 88%. As you can see, again, from this visual, it's just showing the trends of our graduation rate over the past 3 academic school years. So we are increasing, however, we have a goal to be of 88%. This slide is actually showing our graduation rate through the lens of our subgroup. So as you can see, there is a gap. However, that is the goal of the principals, to look at our vertical alignment from pre-K through 12th grade to ensure that we close that gap among our African Americans, our Hispanics, and our Caucasian students. This gives you a broader view in terms of first and second quarter student infractions by campuses. And as you can see, the top 3 that we will focus on, or you will have the opportunity to speak from our principals, Ridge Road, 7th Street, Crestwood for our elementary campuses. And for our secondary campuses, you will see the 6th grade campus, the high school, which is combined with the academy, along with the 7th and 8th grade campus.
Dr. Hooper?
Yes, sir.
What qualifies as an infraction? Anything that sends a student to the office?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just a little bit of research as we dive down into the student discipline. I won't read this word for word. Again, I will just give you a broad view. Students who are suspended at least once are at a greater risk of being suspended again in the future. Poor reading ability in 1st grade acted as a predictor of problem behavior by 3rd grade. Students who are not reading by 3rd grade struggle in every class because 85% of the curriculum is taught by reading. Math, science, social studies, so forth and so on. And more severe discipline has a negative effect on middle and high school students, which you will see throughout this presentation. So we're not just about looking at the data, of course, that's our reality, but we're also about coming up with solutions. Last but not least, yes, we have a lot of supports out there. However, right now is the time that we begin to look at intensive support, start piloting support at specific campuses to ensure that we are being targeted and specific and strategic when it comes to certain campuses, to ensure that we close that gap, to ensure that we produce global graduates starting from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. So what you see here, what you see here is a pilot of intensive support. So what we want to do, again, is look at those targeted campuses. We want to begin or really target our mentors at specific campuses. We want to bridge that partnership with our colleges, along with our business partners, and we also want to look at the instructional block. We definitely have to be specific when it comes to certain campuses that are seeing an increase of student infractions and what we're doing to try to support our teachers along with our students. How do our students learn best when it comes to math, reading, science, and social studies? And again, reviewing every piece of data that we have, but triangulating that data, looking at it through the lens of equity and ensuring that we look at our data through our subgroups to ensuring that we close that achievement gap to ensure that we produce global graduates from pre-K through 12. And from here, I'm going to allow my colleagues, Ms. Smith and Dr. White, speak on those top 3 campuses.
Madam President, school board members, Dr. Paluski. I'm here tonight with my team, and I'm very proud of the work that they have done. But we just want to give you kind of an overview of the data, just some generalizations here. Anything that's in green is good, because that means that there was a decrease of those particular infractions between first and second quarter. So I have arranged them on the slide deck by 3s. So I have Amboy, Boone Park, Crestwood, and then there's the second half of that at the bottom. You will see the total number of incidents or infractions for first quarter compared to second quarter. And so that's what you'll see all the way down through. And basically what we looked at, Dr. Hooper asked us to look at the top 3 campuses that had the most jump of infractions from the first quarter to the second quarter, and those being Ridge Road, 7th Street, and Crestwood. So I have asked my colleagues if they would just speak for a few minutes as to the reasoning or some things that they're seeing, some things that they're putting in place, what's working, what's not working. Also, you will hear that when we talk about equity, not all of our elementary campuses have an in-school suspension room, or what sometimes my colleagues are calling a calm-down room or a reset room. Some campuses do have that opportunity. So keep in mind that on some campuses, an infraction may end up being an out-of-school suspension, where on another campus, it could be in-school suspension or to the intervention classroom. So keeping that in mind, if my three colleagues would come up, Mr. Howe, Mr. Collins, and Ms.
Madam
Bamber.
President, can I ask a question on just that point?
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, can you explain to the board why some campuses have that and others do not?
I think it goes back to a few years, probably before my time, even that we did have some campuses that had in-school suspension rooms. I think just probably because of the frequency of the behavior at that particular school. And through the years, that position has just been maintained. And then at other campuses, you know, it's just not in the funding to do that. But you're going to hear from my colleagues tonight of their wishes of how we can kind of level that playing field. So whoever wants to start, I'm ready to go.
I'll start. So in terms of the plus 60, and going back to this year, what we did, and this actually goes back to last year, we had a group that went to some training this year or last year that was offered by Solution Tree in terms of equity. And so we had a team that came back very fired up in terms of how we can go about seeing some results with our students overall in terms of positivity. How can we support our kids? And so through that, and then through some support with a consultant, we were able to create a behavior plan that actually is more or less the PBIS plan that we're putting into place for this next year. So we've spent quite a bit of time putting a plan into place, providing professional development to our teachers to understand how that looked like. We do have an intervention classroom, and going back to your question, North Heights had one, and so when the three schools were combined, North Heights had always had an in-school suspension classroom. And so when the three schools combined about 7 years ago, we just adopted that. And so we've always had it. It's been there since before I even started in the district. So I'm not sure why we had one and other schools may not have, but that's how we got ours. What we did was we turned that into a reset space for the students to be able to have a calm down area if things were not working on in the class, but we also use it for our in-school suspension. We code it as intervention classroom in our documentation. So for the first quarter, there was a lot of support in terms of talking to parents, working through plans with the students, being able to support them. As the second quarter rolled around, there were some students that continued to have some difficulty, and so we did go ahead and the infractions did start to rise. If you look at the data in itself, really about 42, 43 of those 60 plus that we had this last quarter came down to about 9 students, and one of them ended up having to be removed from the environment into another environment that was more suitable for what they were dealing with, because we didn't have the resources to be able to support that student in terms of their needs. 2 other students did. We ended up meeting with the parents. We had one that had some things going on outside per se, and so we tried working with them. They ended up moving away, so that also took up some of that. And so we had some students that were dealing with some things. We also had another student who we had to get on a couple different times, and now we're not really seeing issues with that. In fact, I was in their classroom today, and the student was participating actively in the discussion that was going on in the class and being very successful. Another student we had some significant issues with, and so they were getting written up quite a bit, but we've been able to get some counseling services for that student. And so we are actually seeing some success, but that is the reasoning for some of the data in terms of it being higher than the first quarter.
Thank you.
May I ask, I'm sorry,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
what is the PBIS?
That is the system that the elementary schools are going through right now in terms of how we can go about supporting the students through really in terms of the positive choices. We're really exemplifying what are the expectations we're holding the kids to, and then how are we supporting them for making those choices. Honestly, I can't tell you what the abbreviation stands for, and I should, but I don't know.
Positive
Thank
behavior
you.
intervention supports.
I'm the only one in this room who doesn't know what it is. I'm sorry. So,
You're good.
but thank you.
So, and every school has participated this year, K-12, in that planning for bringing that PBIS to all campuses. Kind of doing a soft rollout this spring, and then next fall, every school will have a day before school starts to make sure that all of those structures, behavior matrices are in place for all parts of the building, including bathrooms, hallways, buses, so students will know the expectation of behavior.
Right. And we were looking at the data yesterday in terms of how it's been successful this year and what we need to improve on. And so we're already looking at the professional development we're going to offer this summer for our staff in order to be able to improve on what we've already put into place.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
A lot of what Mr. Howe said is kind of true for our campus as well. I do want to highlight, even though it is an increase, we have one of the lowest discipline issues in the district. That being said, the increase really comes from those students that have been habitually getting into the same type of incidents. Just like Mr. Howe said, the first 9 weeks of the first quarter, I have my non-negotiables. The students know it. I believe in, if a student doesn't know how to read, we teach them how to read. If a student doesn't know how to, do math, we teach them how to do math. If a student does not know how to behave, we teach them how to behave and not with the consequences. And so that was the first 9 weeks where we were teaching, we were letting them know these are the consequences if you do not do these things that are set, and I only have 3 rules, and all of my students and my staff know it. And after the 9 weeks, what I found out is that our attendance for our teachers, and that due mainly to COVID, started to decline. We had a great attendance the first 9 weeks. I think on average, the core teachers only missed 2 days, which was exciting news looking at that data. After that, it started to decline. So when that teacher absence declined, behavior started to rise up, and some of those same individuals repeat, and then we had to go ahead and give them consequences. So that's really the rise of our discipline issues.
Thank you. On the slides that you'll see, of course, ISS stands for in-school suspension. INT is that intervention classroom that Mr. Howe talked about. And then, of course, OSS is out-of-school suspension. So, again, I think it's real important that we know which schools, some schools have that and some don't. So, Ms. Bamberg?
Hi, thank you. I am at a school that doesn't have ISS or an intervention classroom. So you'll see the numbers from first quarter went from 17 to 43 during second quarter. Like the gentleman said, the first quarter we're teaching behaviors, just like we're teaching those core academics. And then as the year progresses, we're holding them more accountable for those behaviors. So that's some of the increase in those numbers. Another increase is that we house the district's kindergarten and first grade alternative learning environment, the ALE program for kindergarten and first grade. Of the 17 actions, what's important to note is that an action doesn't mean how many times a student was sent to the office. There were only 14 kindergarten students sent to the office, kindergarten and first grade. They could have had more than one action for a behavior. So maybe we conferenced with a parent, we denied a privilege. So that's 2 actions for 1 offense. So that's something to note. Quarter 1, there were 17 actions, but 14 of those were K-1 students, and 5 of those were in our alternative learning environment. And those in the alternative learning environment had multiple actions to their behavior because we're trying to remediate and teach that behavior. And also, like Mr. Collins said, first quarter we rolled into the year pretty steady, but then as second quarter came along, we had a lot of subs in the building. And children who are pushing the boundaries push it more so when there's a sub in the building than when the regular classroom teacher is there. So again, 43 actions second quarter included 32 of those were in K-1 students. So only 14 by the students in the general ed population. 6 of those students were ALE classroom, and of those 6, all 6 of them had at least 2 actions, sometimes 4. Sorry, thank you. Things we're doing to help remediate some of those behaviors. We do work with the PBIS. We're doing a soft implementation. We've had a lot of PD and staff training on that. We also use the Second Step program, which is a social emotional program. Our counselor teaches that. She does counseling lessons every week in classrooms. And then because this year has been so big on, we've had a lot of behavior that we haven't seen. Kindergartners and first graders aren't coming to school with the same school readiness skills. including behavior skills, because they've been at home, they've been learning differently. We've been taking advantage of some of our fine arts teachers' planning time, not their duty-free planning time, but their prep time during the day. And they're acting as social emotional coaches to help the counselor with some of the more traditional counseling roles, because the counselor is doing more severe trauma intervention. So in addition to her counseling lessons, she's doing some higher level stuff. So to help with these numbers, those are some things we're implementing.
Any other questions that you have for us that we're happy to answer?
I just want to go back to Ridge Road for a second.
Okay.
Are the language barriers still an issue as far as discipline is concerned?
No, sir.
So we're handling that pretty well.
Yeah, that's not, this one's not related to the language. The only thing that may happen is if the kids say a cuss word in Spanish, but other than that, no. Nothing along those lines.
You understand what he's saying?
Yeah, yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are
Another-
there further questions?
Yes, ma'am. One of my questions is, when you were mentioning as far as resources, what resource, like some schools may have the resources necessary to put the, have the common room in place and other schools may not. What resources are you referring to? Like, is it a space issue? Is it a money issue? Is it a?
In some instances, it's both. We are pretty packed at the majority of our campuses, but those that do have room, it requires a person to be in there. And ideally, what we would like to see are calming rooms in every building, where those hired might be a paraprofessional that we get some specific training to work in, trauma-informed, how to de-escalate. And it would not be an intervention, it would not be an in-school suspension. It would be an intervention to where they could go and reset, get calm back down, and then obviously get them back into classes. And I do want to say that Mr. Howe has implemented school-wide that they have calming areas in every classroom, which is working pretty well. And when I was over there observing, I did notice that one student was redirected to, go cool down. And the whole time the student was there, he was still participating and listening to the lesson. So he was not being removed from the environment. So ultimately, that's the goal, is to try to get students to have that self-regulating regulation of their body so that they can calm down and then come back. But obviously, we've seen a huge increase, especially with our little ones coming in, because they haven't been in any structured setting for 2 years. So it's been tough.
Are there other questions? I would like to ask principals, since you're talking about resources, have there been anything that you needed and it was not sent to the board? Because I do know that any time there has been a requisition for the elementary schools, that the board has always been very supportive. And so while you're while you're here, could you please tell me, while the superintendent is here, do you have anything that you would need to help counteract your discipline problem?
Well, for Crestwood, we are always over in numbers. So I have a kindergarten, this year it's a first and second grade split classroom, which means I had to move a GT teacher out of her classroom. She's in what is a storage room now, so she's teaching in a storage room because we're always over in our numbers. And so that's not conducive to the students' learning, and it's also not meeting the requirements that are set by state law for this square footage that teachers need to conduct a class. So paying attention to that, our numbers, keeping those at our maximum and not going over. We're not a title school, so we don't have the funds to pay for, extra support staff like paraprofessionals and things like that. So we have, when we've been asked what could make us more productive, we have asked to have 2 school paras that could help in things like resource rooms, move a child out of a classroom, because most of our teachers have calming centers in their classroom. But when the behavior gets so escalated that it's distracting from others' learning, we would need to move that one child out. And there's no one to take that one child out, because I've got one teacher and my paras are all paid by different funding, so I'm not allowed to put them in other roles. So my paras most of them are SPED paras, one-on-one. They're assigned to SPED classrooms. They're not in the general ed classrooms. I can't call them down to come help with a student and remove them just to walk for a few minutes to calm down, to use our discovery trails that we have. So then that takes away from, administration. My school secretary does that, so then there's no one answering the phone, and we're just doing a lot of juggling.
Okay, thank you.
Since it's my first year at 7th Street, what I really wanted to do is observe and see how I can peel back the layers to see what's, the root issues and help as much as I can. And one thing that it keeps coming up is a social emotional learning, and having either a curriculum or something in place to help our students. And our counselor is already full, so it's a lot putting just that on one person. And that's something moving into next year that I really have to look at, because our students in handling conflict, it's just a lot, and where they're coming from is a lot on them just to come to school and be attentive and want to learn. I think 7th Street has, and my team of people have done a great job of handling so far this year, but I know that is one piece that is missing that I'm looking forward to implementing. And having the funds to do that, I believe I probably will, but that's something that if I don't, because of everything that we got going on and having the personnel, that's something that I would probably reach out to you guys.
Mr. Howell?
Before, when you say, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish. I'll ask my question later.
Okay, I will just hear Mr. Howell, and we'll come back.
That's
if you
fine,
hear any
thanks.
questions. Mr. Howell?
So, and to reiterate what they said, basically the same kinds of things. I know for us, one of the things that hampers, Ms. Lawrence and I are doing what we can to try and support our teachers and be in the classrooms and be able to look and see what the teachers need in terms of moving them in terms of effective strategies to work with the kids academically and behaviorally. But staffing is definitely an issue for us, even being the largest elementary school. We are down. We have no lunch aides at this point, and so Ms. Lawrence and I and other people do help out at lunch, and it takes up quite a bit of our time. And so we're supervising students and plugging in holes and things with some of the needs that we have. Having somebody just assigned to be able to deal with some of the issues we have, because it consumes a lot of time. So not only do you deal with the lunch and playground supervision, then you're dealing with behavior, follow-up and that kind of thing, and trying to get that done in a hastily manner. And so definitely that is something that a resource, or things to look at.
Okay, at this time, Mr. JT?
All right, thanks, Ms. Williams. So you used the term social emotional learning, which is a bit of a trigger word out there. Can you clarify when you say that what you're referring to, and in your school what that would mean?
Morning meetings, character building, having character words of the week that builds on handling different things that are in school. Also having activities where the students are what we call team building, but team building within the classroom. And knowing how to operate not only in the classroom, but be friends with, well, I would say friends, but knowing how to interact with students outside of their classroom. Knowing how to interact with their peers and the teacher, and teachers that are not, around them. And so that's kind of what I mean by social emotional learning, kind of digging deep, having a safe space for them to express what's going on in their neighborhoods, what's going on in their community, what's going on in their house, and having teachers equipped to handle and be able to respond to things they may say to them. Right now, I don't think they're equipped to do that, but that's something that I want to look into, so it just will not all fall on the counselor.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, may I add one thing? Mr. Howell made me think of that when he talked about no recess aides, lunch aides. That is something that we could use the board's help with. We're having a really hard time hiring people in those positions because of the pay. Pay at a lot of fast food places now are $13 to $15 an hour, and we're asking recess aides and lunch aides to come in at the middle of the day for 3 hours, 4 hours, for $11 an hour. All year long, I have not had recess aides, and that's where the majority of my behaviors happen. I have to rely on substitutes that come in, so every day there's 3 different people that show up. They're never this. At Crestwood, we're lucky because we have a lot of parent volunteers that do sub, but it's not consistent. You know, there's different people every day, every single day. And so when you don't have that routine, that's hard. And we cannot fill those positions.
Oh, thank you. Were there other comments?
Follow up from that then. So my question for all of you would be, where are the watchdog dads? Where are the community individuals that we've been pairing with and asking support from? Why are they not in your schools? And not to answer, excuse me. And where's the community involvement? Because I see community members here tonight that I've never seen here in the crowd, but they're not volunteering in our schools. So again, I beg to ask, where are assistants? Where are stakeholders? Why are they not assisting us when we have needs?
Well, it's just like hiring people to come. We can't make them. We can ask them. We can encourage them. I have parents that come help every morning, open car doors every single morning. There's 3 to 5 dads out there every day. I have a grandpa that comes every Friday to cover recess duty. He's the only consistent man every Friday, a grandpa. They do come, but they have other obligations. They might come every Monday, they might come every Thursday, but it's different people throughout the day, throughout the week. And so it's that consistency that we need.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Yes, one more. Have any of you made any specific recommendations to your supervisor that have gotten to the superintendent, ultimately to the board level?
Not to the board level yet, but yes.
And some of these recommendations that you spoke of?
For an example, and it depends on some of the things that are.
You did budget presentation.
Yes, and so when we presented our budgets last fall, we talked about, like Connie had said, or Ms. Bamberg, I'm sorry, what she had said was in terms of the pay. And so one of the things that would benefit my campus is having somebody that's not just there for morning to do crossing guard duty and then there for lunch, then coming back for crossing guard duty. If we could have somebody there all day long, that would basically support our systems. And so they could support the supervision at lunch, at recess, but then they can also be there to support our interventions and the needs of what kids we have, not only academically, but also social, emotional learning as well. And so having individuals like that would be very beneficial for our campus.
And having them there all day builds into the culture of the school. They know our routines, they know our procedures, they know what we do. When they're bouncing in and out, they don't know. So they're winging it based on their best knowledge, how they would react. But it might not be what our teachers are teaching or what the language the kids are used to hearing. So that has been a problem. We've made our budget presentations in October. And then earlier this year, HR asked us for our staffing needs, like bare bones minimum, what we needed to do staff for our schools. So we've all said what we need for that. We're still waiting on answers for our budget presentations and for what our staffing might look like next year.
And I think that you guys' responsibility is to make your request known in writing, and then allow the budget office and others to find out. I mean, there are unique ways to fund some of these efforts. Programs like Teach for America, Vista AmeriCorps programs that utilize young people to actually come into educational facilities and not to teach, but to be positive influences. So, I mean, if we know we can help. We may have to be a little creative because we don't have the budget for everything, but we need to know before numbers get out of hand. Without looking through the papers, I did want to know which schools do not have in-school suspension.
So let's see, Amboy, I believe, does. Boone Park does, right? Help me, guys. Crestwood does not. Glenview does not. Indian Hills does not. Lakewood does not. Meadow Park does. Okay. PQR. Ridge Road does, and 7th Street does.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One question statement stays in my mind from Crestwood. You stated that you have to go into a closet?
It's like a big supply closet. It's not like a small
Room
little closet,
closet,
but it's a supply closet, and we have, GT is teaching in a supply closet. Interventions are in a supply closet. We've built out in our discovery areas for our dyslexia interventionist and our speech for our STAR classroom. We're working on a build out for them. So those big discovery areas, which we called flex spaces, so the grade levels can meet together to collaborate and do fun, hands-on learning, they're being taken up by build-outs that maintenance has come and built.
Shout out to maintenance, they've done a great job.
Maintenance, and they're
Yeah.
nice, they look nice, but they've taken up our flex areas. So all of the furniture that was bought for that has been put in our cage.
Okay,
You're welcome to come view the school anytime. I'm happy to give you a tour.
okay. I just want to make clear, you know, that the board hears this and what we can do
Yes, ma'am.
as a board. And I really appreciate you all and the answers. And the principals coming up, when you make your presentation, would you kind of make it in one statement, your needs, and we'll have to go backwards and forwards, and then the board can ask, okay? But I certainly appreciate you all and the honesty, and hopefully we can do something about it, because salaries now will be the next thing we discuss, and maybe we can work on those things for you, okay? And thank you.
And I appreciate all my leaders so much because they have been so flexible, so willing to just do and try and just make everything work. But they all did present a budget presentation to the executive team back in October. So they definitely made their wants and needs to the board or to the superintendent.
And real quick, Madam President, let me say something real fast, and this has kind of been burning on my heart. We don't want anyone that is an employee of the North Little Rock School District to ever feel as though you can't call us, email us, say something, anything like that. We want you to feel comfortable that you can pick up the phone and say something to us. We're not big bad wolves up here that you can't talk to. We want you to feel as though you have our support, the support of the superintendent, and if you need something as far as personnel to help make intervention better for you, your students, and your schools, we're here to accommodate you. So don't ever feel as though you can't pick up the phone or call us. Now listen to what I say when I say this. It is a proper chain of command for everything. If you send an email to your supervisor, it's okay to CC us on it so we'll know that there is a need and there's an issue. Don't ever feel like you can't come to us, that you can't talk to us, that you can't say anything to us. We're not here to support you or support your schools or your students, because we are. That's what we're elected for. So I want to make that real crystal clear, okay? That we're here for you all.
Okay, open door policy has always been the superintendent. If you call and not get it, call him, okay? Thank you very much. Next group.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Paluski. You know, I'm really excited about this one because if you'll notice on that first slide, there's only 2 schools for secondary that increased in referrals. The 7th, 8th campus actually decreased by 41. So at this time, I'm going to ask those 3 principals to come up. Mr. Kane, you included, even though you decreased. And as they come, I just want to say that this is not easy. It's not easy for them to come up here and talk about their data, because we know that data doesn't always tell the big picture, right? But I just appreciate them for working fearlessly and tirelessly each and every day for our students, doing the best they can with what they have. So I'm just appreciative for all you all. And you can see it in their eyes. They're nervous, but they are ready to share their story. And you know, last time I was here, I gave you all a little bit of research, and I just like to give you this excerpt. As our nation struggles to keep children in school, parents and educators alike are confronted with the increasingly complex mental health needs of children who are stressed out, anxious, depressed, and worse. Their needs are overwhelming our educators, who themselves are often overlooked, overworked, underpaid, and don't always have the training and supports to adequately help children who are struggling. Schools, I know, we're in the business of educating children. We know that. But we have to attend to the whole child, and that's what I believe our leaders are doing. So once again, thank you all for that. So the setup really for this evening, they are going to talk about celebrations. They're going to talk about potential causes and contributors to success, also supports in place, next steps, and additional support needed. So I'm going to start with Mr. Clark, 6th grade campus.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, Dr. Paluski. It is my pleasure to present some celebrations that we have seen over this school year, especially during the second quarter. As we look through the discipline data, there are, of course, some areas that we have increased on. There are some areas that we have decreased. The major infractions that you see here that are in green are the ones that, of course, have decreased. The minor infractions, and it's kind of echoing what the elementary principals have said, is where we taught during that first 9 weeks a lot of process and procedures, trying to get students to understand, what it's like to be in the 6th grade. And so that disruption, those disregard and disrespect for our teachers and staff, those have gone up due to the fact that now we're starting to issue some consequences when students start to not follow those processes and procedures. However, we want to celebrate some data that we pulled this week, and that is, of course, going back to 2019. That was the last time that we truly had a full house like we do this year, because we just have 38 students that are virtual. But when you look at our disrespect numbers that are here, that is 42 that we had during the second quarter. If you go back to the same time period in 2019, that was 120. So that's a decrease of 65%. And so we're very, very proud of that number. Our disruptions are currently at 47, and in 2019 that was 79. Our fighting, we currently had 16. In 2019 we had 46 fights in the second quarter. So yes, our discipline numbers are not where we want them to be. However, if you compare a year by year analysis of this, we're showing some gains, you could say, in our data. Again, it's not where we want it to be, but we are showing some progress. The other items that we have implemented is we are in our 4th year of our positive behavior intervention system called ROARS. And that is an acronym that stands for respect, on time, active learning, responsible, and safe. And
Can you repeat that real quick? I'm
yes,
sorry.
ROARS.
Okay.
And that acronym stands for respect, on time, active learner, responsible, and safe. And we have those expectations set, and they are posted in every classroom, what it looks like for ROARS in a classroom, what it looks like in the hallway, what it looks like in the cafeteria, what it looks like in the front office, what it looks like in the courtyard. And so those are posted throughout our building so that when students walk through, they are there. And we can go back and refer back to those. When we look at the potential causes, you've heard this from the elementary group, is that conflict resolution or conflict management. When we get them, they're 11, 12 years old. It's very difficult to teach a 11 or 12-year-old how to diffuse conflict. It's hard for adults sometimes. And so that's something that we're working on, trying to make sure that those students understand when a conflict arises, it's okay to walk away, let somebody know. That way it removes them from that situation and it doesn't escalate to something higher. One of the other items that is becoming a major influence in our day-to-day activities is cell phones. I mean, from social media to recording other students and teachers in the classroom, all the way to texting parents in the middle of class. We even had some students this year, they just pick up the phone, call their parents while the teacher is teaching. The teacher will ask them to put the phone away. They said, nope, I'm talking to my mother. She said I could call her anytime I wanted to. That is what we are running into. and it's probably going to be echoed throughout my colleagues here, but that is a situation where parents are finding things out quicker than we are, because they pull out their cell phone in the middle of the class to let their parent know that this teacher just got on to me for doing something that I did. And as administrators, they're calling us, yelling at us, or not yelling, but upset, and we have no idea.
We know that you put that in a real nice way, but thank you for that.
They are unhappy with us. How about that? But some of the supports, and to switch gears, the supports in place that we have is we have a school-wide mentoring program. Our 8th period is dedicated to our personalized learning time and mentoring. So every student in our building has a mentor, and they meet with that person at least every other week, if not more. That is our requirement that we have. That is something, I know a lot of the board members that have been here for a while, the Summit Learning Platform, that was one of the pillars that Summit had that we continue to keep because we saw the power in that. And then, as I mentioned a while ago, the positive behavior system, the ROARs, we have 3-week and 9-week incentives that students can earn. We have academic celebrations. First 9 weeks, we had 81 students with all A's. Second 9 weeks, we had 90. First 9 weeks, we had 280 students with all A's, B's, and C's. And then the second 9 weeks was 303. So we're seeing an increase in our academics also. And those students are celebrated. To keep this short, and I know this is something that the board, you have asked the elementary principals, the additional supports, one of the things that we would love to have at the 6th grade campus is either a dean of students or someone that can support full-time our positive behavior intervention system. Because right now the teachers and administrators, we are the ones that are trying to juggle both of that. But if we had somebody that was really dedicated to pull those students in that may be having conflict and have our mini sessions or like a roundtable discussion, someone that could focus their attention on that would be very powerful. And someone that is trained in mental health. Of course, we have our school counselor, and they are able to do some, but they just don't have that deep training that a mental health professional does. And so those are some of those additional supports that would really help our campus.
Any questions from?
I have one real quick. Have you already submitted that in your budget?
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize because we were supposed to listen to you all first, and we're taking notes, and we'll come back and ask you questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Kane.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Greetings, Madam President, Superintendent Paluski, and board members. Just to echo some of the things, of course, being in middle school with Mr. Clark, we see some of the same issues. But if we start off with our celebrations, I'm going to go ahead and put this celebration first because I told my Quiz Bowl team I was going to do this today because they wanted to get a shout out for it. Our Quiz Bowl team did come in second place in the region, so they will be going to the state tournament. I got you.
Shout out to the Quiz Bowl.
Yes, that's it. I told them I was going to do it, so I held to my word. But back to the discipline part on this end. Dr. White started off with us at first. I know last quarter, I think out of all schools, we were leading the discipline. I'll say that. So to say that we decreased by 41 referrals, that is a celebration. No, it's not where we want to be, but hey, it is a decrease. So we will take that and build on it. One of the things I do also want to celebrate is as we came back in, we actually did a incentive referral for our students where we took a 2-week average in November, which was like our highest 2 weeks of referrals, which we had almost 200 referrals during that time. And our 8th grade, they won the competition. They had a 64% decrease in referrals during that time. 7th grade was right behind them with 62%. So what we're learning is if we can find incentives or things that really motivate our students to help out with their behavior, they gravitate to it quickly. Shout out also to Mr. Ricky Jones and Mr. Charlie Jones. They were our guest grill masters, and they cooked for us, and the kids really enjoyed that. And they're looking for the next incentive, which we do have in place. We all have PBIS teams. we're in a soft rollout, but we are still working on incentives. Right now, starting from the second week in February all the way to the Friday before spring break, we're having our food truck throwdown. So that means that the students that do not get referrals, that's either 7th or 8th grade, they'll be able to actually enjoy a food truck on us, and also some music and some time just to celebrate and say we appreciate your positive behavior in our schools. That's what we have to start putting in front of our students, saying that, hey, yes, we're going to address the bad behavior, but we're going to celebrate the great things that y'all do in school. So I want to do that. Also, during our PD day on, I think it's February the 10th for our parent-teacher conferences, all of our staff members, we're actually all working with PBIS, everyone. We started creating lesson plans that we're going to roll out next year, where we're going to actually, like I said again, what Mr. Clark said, we're going to teach our students how they need to behave in every area and every aspect in our building. And every teacher participated, all staff members. I couldn't get my custodians because of the time, and also my cafeteria staff, but they will also give us feedback in this as well, because to change that kind of culture, you need the whole school community working together to do that. And then last but not least, of course, if you look up there above, we got a lot of green there, so that means we have some decreases. But some of the big ones, of course, we saw some decreases in referrals dealing with disrespect and disregard, whether it be teachers or other staff members, engaging in insults and verbal abuse. Of course, fighting, that was a big thing that we had going on our campus at that time, so we worked on decreasing that as well. Also, use of profanity and obscene gestures as well. We've seen decreases in that, and there are some other decreases there, but those are some of the major ones that we were putting some emphasis on to try to work on improving. Potential causes, of course, again, I'm going to echo Mr. Clark, because again, we're talking about middle school students. Conflict management. I mean, it is amazing when a situation occurs, how our students really view it and what they do, whether that is actually active disrespect or passive disrespect. And I mean, as adults, we see both of those. So trying to teach them how to handle the conflict or the situation in a way that their voice is heard, and that also their need can be met, because there's some kind of need that's not being met. That's why they're acting a certain way that they are. So working with them on that. And then I'll echo again, cell phones, cell phones, cell phones, cell phones. I think prevalent to everything that we've been kind of dealing with right now, you see that it's all front and center of what we have. And our kids are getting that fed into them on a regular basis. And that's become, that perception is becoming their reality. So that is one of those issues. The social media, again, we have kids that make fake accounts and say all kinds of things about themselves, teachers, students, those kinds of things. So we see those effects as they come back to school or they're at school. And that's one of the places where they can address those things when they see them. Supports that we have in place, and we actually borrowed this from the first quarter from Dr. St. Louis. We do our best as students come back off suspensions to start meeting with them. Between that, be the designated teachers, administrators, ourselves, or also our counselors, just to talk with them, check in on them, see how they're doing, what we can do to actually help them out, so that we can actually curb some of this behavior and things that we're seeing. Because the ultimate goal, especially as we express to our parents, we need the students in school. They're not in school, they're not getting the instruction that they need, and it shows in our scores and what we're trying to do. They got to be there to get the instruction. Also to implement smart data observations. As an administrative team, we all take a piece of that smart data and we look at it. Like, for example, one of my administrators pays attention to the discipline aspect. So if we see certain things starting to creep up, it gives you early warning signs so that we can start putting things in place to hopefully curb that before it gets out of control. Also to other supports that we have, of course, is through our PBIS and our incentives. And then last but not least, just even echoing what our elementary school counterparts are doing as well, are social emotional learning lessons. And we kind of tailor those towards the things that they are experiencing right now. So like, for example, those lessons might be about how to be safe on social media. You know, what is bullying and how you can help prevent bullying. Those things that are prevalent to what our students are experiencing right now is how we craft those particular types of lessons. I know for us, moving beyond our next steps, of course, we're going to continue those reentry meetings with our students, but we also need to incorporate our parents. I think that's one thing that we can definitely improve on. We meet with those students all the time, but then also to meeting with those parents to express to them and let them know, hey, we want your child here. We need your child here. Let's work together so that we can curb this behavior so they can get the most out of what we're offering them. Also, too, and then of course our behavioral and academic incentives. I just mentioned to you all we have the food truck throwdown coming up pretty soon, and then also too off of our last NWEA scores, we always do incentive celebrating our students who have growth here in the spring, heading into our ACT Aspire testing. And then last but not least, and this is something that we're all still working towards, I'm going to also give a shout out to Sergeant Hinton and also another young lady, Maya Hayes. They meet with groups of girls on a consistent basis on our campus, and these are not the model young ladies, but the ladies that really need that support. They do that on a regular basis to help them out. I think Maya actually received a reward from Ms. Barker not too long ago, and like I said, again, Sergeant Hinton every Wednesday, she's there pulling her group of students to really mentor them, but we still need to promote mentoring and establish more mentoring opportunities for our students. And so one thing about it is, yes, we have teachers that work with them during intervention and advisory, but we also need all hands on deck. We need more adults. I need more African-American males working with my African-American male children. They need that. They need to see it. They need to see more of us, but we just need more mentoring across the board. There's plenty of students in our building that can definitely use that and help with some of these numbers that we're seeing for our discipline.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane?
Next.
Oh, I did leave out one thing. I'm sorry. Additional supports. I'm sorry. I apologize. I got to get this out. I do apologize. I'm going to echo Mr. Clark too on that. Dean of Students or PBIS supervisor, because we really want to look at doing some type of restorative practices. Because I guess as we see later, we'll talk about ISS and OSS numbers. But again, we already know if those numbers are high and that's happening, the kids are missing out on instruction. So having someone that can help promote that for us. I do also agree with Mr. Clark, having some type of health agencies on campus to help us out. We're seeing that are not only our students hurting, but our parents are hurting. So that means that if you're going to really service the child, you got to service the whole child. So we need those supports on campus that can help us with that. And then last but not least, PD that's geared towards teaching in urban environments. One thing I tell my teachers, it's okay. I'm a by trade math teacher will always be. I don't mind repeating myself several times to make sure my kids understand what they need to do. And so on a daily basis, I used to always share my expectations regardless. So we have to do those things and be trained in doing those things so that we can make sure our students understand and know what we expect.
Okay. Dr. St. Louis?
Yes. Good evening, Madam President, board members, and Dr. Paluski. I'm here to discuss the discipline related to North Little Rock High School. I do know there's a lot of eyes and attention on our school right now, and so I want to take this time to celebrate the positive things that are going on in our building. I want people to know that we have 26 students that are currently AP scholars. I want everyone to know that we have over 600 students that we recognize for making honor roll first semester. I want everyone to know that we had a wonderful transition opportunity for our rising ninth graders. All of our eighth graders came to our campus. We had a parent night just to make sure our parents and our students know that we're excited to welcome them to the school next year. I want everyone to know that we have several academic and athletic scholarships that our seniors are receiving. I want everyone to know that we have 2 students who made the All-American McDonald's basketball team, as well as several athletic accomplishments this year, which include our swim team, football, cheer, wrestling, and basketball. I want everyone to know that we had several people to come out in our community to help our old main building and that cleanup, and that was led by a student from our campus. We have well over 35 student clubs and organizations for our students to feel involved and to be seen and to be heard. And I just also want everyone to know that we have had a decrease in some of our behavior incidents and actions on the campus. Now, I just want to also just continue to share just some, potential causes and things that, why we see the have seen some increase and decrease from first, second, and this current quarter. We've had, teacher attendance, and that's just things that are unforeseen. We've had several of our teachers who have lost loved ones this year, teachers out on FMLA leave, teachers out for COVID. And so, when teachers aren't there, that does impact your school building.
Right.
Also, the social media influence is huge, especially in a high school. I just can't tell you how much one post can just run rampant in a school building. And I have seen that on a daily basis, and that does lead to a lot of the incidents that we have in our school building. And unfortunately, sometimes it's just hard for us to catch it as soon as we can because it's just spread amongst our students. Also, just getting our students on a steady schedule. Last year, so many students were virtual, and then this quarter, our students, between virtual and AMI and coming back to school. So, I commend our students and staff for trying to stay on the up and up with just kind of the many changes, but that does result to some concerns when it comes to discipline. I will echo Mr. Clark and Mr. Kane when they talked about conflict resolution. We still are dealing with 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds who struggle with conflict resolution and being able to discuss what's going on so we can build a better school. And then also, there's just a lot of community issues from outside of our school that come inside our school building every day. And so we try our best to try to combat those, but those are things that influence our discipline. I do want you all to know some things that we do have in place. There is a principal advisory council. I look forward to meeting with our students every other week, and that is an opportunity for me as a principal to hear from our students about how we can make our school better, how we can address. The students are concerned about, the fighting and things like that, but it's great to hear from them. How can we as a school, it's not just on the adults, but we want to hear from the students too, how we can make that better. We continue to have reentry meetings. We've been doing those since the beginning of the school year. When students come back to school, that's part of restorative. We want them to come back and be restored into the building. So how can we support them when they come back to school? We have a student intervention process, and so teachers can submit names of students who need extra support. Assistant principals and counselors, they meet together to address those students and what supports that they need. We've been down an assistant principal, but we've been trucking along and we've been addressing student needs and discipline. And so I appreciate all of our assistant principals and our dean of student. We've been able to partner with Next Step Counseling. They've been able to come to one of our professional developments, and we've been trying to target that to our families and communities so, we can make sure that we're promoting mental health for our student, staff, and our families. Some next steps, just so you all understand just kind of where we're going. We are implementing PBIS next school year, and so we're working towards that now. We want to increase mentoring programs, and then we also have the Freshman Academy that we're starting. That is the largest group that we've seen the number one issues with is with ninth graders, so I'm looking forward to having that ninth grade academy next year. Some supports that we do need, we need a district-wide cell phone policy. We need that in place for our schools and our teachers. I've heard that several times this year. The high school needs 2 to 3 deans of students. If we want to focus on discipline, I can't just put that on myself and my assistant principals when we're also supporting teachers in the classroom and instruction. So we need multiple deans of students to be able to help us with restorative practices, implementing PBIS, and school discipline. We also need campus supervisors. Unfortunately, we've had to pull several campus supervisors, so they will cover classes because we are down subs. So when we have less campus supervisors, that's less people to be in the hallways to support students and make sure our building is safe, and we can eliminate some of these issues. We also need mental health providers, not just one, we need more than one, and we need those mental health providers to support not just our students, but our teachers who are struggling as well. And then we need professional development that focuses on culturally relevant teaching on the block, and crisis response training. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Steele?
Yes, good presentation. Just a couple of questions. I'm not trying to leave you out, Mr. Clark. You do a good job. Mr. Kane, have seen a lot more activity at the middle school. Passed by one day and the kids were outside. I think that's very healthy. Maybe you can get your brother to come and provide some music. You aware of the Panhellenic Council here? It's made up of all the sororities and fraternities in Central Arkansas. It's a good resource. Ms. Barker is very well aware of it. For mentors and volunteers. They even have a couple of Panhellenic groups that give out or provide grants. I know Omega Psi Phi is one, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. We give out small grants, but we also provide mentors, volunteers in the schools. So that could be a very good resource for you. One question that I have on your discipline issues, especially your fighting, and I didn't see it broken down, but is it mostly young women or young men?
At the beginning of the school year, we had mostly young men, and that first quarter pretty much showed that, and we having a lot of issues where we were having, multiple students jumping on students and things of that nature. That's where we started. Now it has shifted a little bit in the second semester where we do have more young ladies now getting into altercations. But again, compared to the numbers of where we were, we have been decreasing, in that, but it has shifted. Part of that is from, what went on at the beginning and what we had to do and supports we had to put in place to try to curve that number and get it to decrease, where we are. And then of course, between, and I'll say between my especially my male administrators, really taking on certain kids and really trying to, how to say, give them that extra push and that extra nudge and say, hey, you come to us before we have these big altercations is where we see that. Do have just one female administrator. She's working her way around, working my female students as best she can as well, on that end. So, but yes, we're starting to see a rise in our female population getting altercations now.
Right. And Dr. St. Louis, just real quickly, let me just thank you for your leadership. You really come here and acclimated yourself to this community, and I think taking control of what's a very challenging situation to have that many young people in the high school. So we really appreciate the job that you're doing. A couple of quick questions I wanted to ask you. Something that's always been a concern for me there at the high school, and and when I came in, I think I mentioned it to you a little bit, is that time where the kids go to the cafeteria. I don't know how that was designed like that, but that is a lot of people in a close proximity that has to come at the same time. Is that where you see some of your issues at? And have you thought about what can be done to kind of eliminate some of that rush?
Yeah, well, first of all, Mr. Steele, I appreciate your kind words. So actually, we've not seen as many issues in our cafeteria. There's a lot of visibility. I try to be in the cafeteria myself most of the time with the students. We see the issues when they're transitioning out of the cafeteria, they're going back to class and things like that. So that's where kind of like, again, that social media, they'll be in the cafeteria, they kind of start talking and sharing things, and then when they're leaving out, we have to really keep our eyes on our students and just position ourselves. But we don't see as many issues in the cafeteria.
Good. And finally, how would a cell phone policy work? A little surprised to see that you guys are dealing with that already at 6th grade level. I was thinking mostly high school, but
I'm sure it's in the elementary schools too.
Maybe.
I would say that for us, working with the teachers to really kind of see, they're in the classrooms on what would be best for them to support that. And I think we just need specific procedures. If a student, doesn't want to comply, or, it's just constantly nonstop. Teachers could spend majority of their class time telling students, put your phone away, put your phone away. So we just need very clear procedures and outlines when it comes to cell phones, and just make sure we have a collective commitment amongst all of our staff to follow that. Is what we really need. So I'm not going to say I know what the answer is, because I don't. We'd have to do some research, but I want us to make sure we bring teachers to the table, because they're in the classrooms and they experience it every day, and I think they have some great insight.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. J.D.?
If I could just add to that, Ms. Williams, just while we're on that topic. Thank you for that, Mr. Steele. And we've heard that from our administrators about the cell phone policy. In fact, the superintendent's employee advisory is tackling this issue, and we have teachers that serve on there, and that's one of the things that they wanted to tackle. So they're working on actually a revision so that we can bring that to principals. They have enough to do. So we're using that as a forum to try to get it to them before the end of the year, to bring it to you so we could set up next school year. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr.
Okay.
President, I just had a statement. We've had some very public things going on, especially at the high school this week, and I just want to thank you all for working every day to try to keep our kids safe. and you each had requests that you feel like you need in your building to create a safe and healthy atmosphere, and I hope that administration will listen and do their best to fulfill that.
I just concur.
Ms. Welcome.
Okay, so I've got a few things. Bless your heart. I know the high school's tough. I've got 2 kids there. I've seen all the videos. But you know what? Here's my data for you. Out of 2,296 kids, the most infractions of fighting is 104 kids. That's what this data tells me. So you're okay. We're okay. That's 104 kids out of 2,296 kids that are possibly causing that social media ruckus. Not to mention the adults. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
My kids are there. You're doing a great job. I know you've gotten my kids' emails. Thank you. My heart breaks for you, as in Mr. Kane, and for you as well, Mr. Clark. So the data for 7th and 8th grade, most infractions, fighting, 127 out of 1,166 kids. We're doing okay.
And some of those are repeat offenders, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 6th grade, not to leave you out, yours is insubordination. 84 out of 523 kids. We're doing okay. I know what the world says right now. I know what North Little Rock Facebook pages are saying about us, but we're doing okay. Our kids, you just read off 2 pages of amazing things that our kids are doing. That's amazing. I'm not upset about that. To clarify a few things, so we don't have dean of students at 7th and 8th grade and 6th grade campus, but we have one at high school.
We only have one.
Yeah.
Just one.
Okay, so one for 2,296 kids.
Correct.
Okay, and then we have 0 for 523 kids and 1,166 kids. Okay. Cell phone, absolutely, we need a cell phone policy. Absolutely, I agree with that. So I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Smith, does the ASBA not have a cell phone policy already written that we can adopt? And I know you said we've got a forum, a policy group that's looking into that, but there may be one already written out there, and I don't know. But I would think if the team of attorneys who have already approved a policy, can we not just adopt it and be done with it? Because something needs to happen, I agree.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So just a few little tidbits.
And I really appreciate everybody's, kind words and just, cheering us on, because the work is hard. I love it. I wouldn't back down. Some days I want to, but I love being here, and it's so many of our students who do the right thing every day.
Yeah.
And, I don't want us to take away from that. So many of our students come to school every day, and they don't even know what's going on, because they're in class, they're learning. They're like, what, something happened today? And I appreciate that. I appreciate all the students who said kind words, and that happens on all of our campuses. And so we just want to make sure our community knows, like, our kids are coming to school, they want to learn, they want to do the right things. And, I just appreciate you all support on our school leadership.
Another follow-up, just tidbit, because of the events of what have happened today, or this week, excuse me.
They all run together.
Yeah, they all run together right now. A lot of parents have reached out to me regarding the protest and the fighting and stuff. And of course, they're seeing the negative. They're not seeing our positives right now. So again, I ask, why are they not helping us instead of showing up for the school board meetings to complain? Why are you not in the schools helping? But I'll get over my soapbox. But with that being said, their rights to protest and argue and fuss and fight don't trump the rights of the children to have a safe environment. So that's something we all need to remember. Out of the 84 kids or 127 kids and the 104 kids, their rights are no different, and they don't trump the 2,000, the 1,000, the 500 kids. They just don't. So that's something we all need to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, I just want to say this last thing. You know, what we see on the board and everything, that is not our final story.
Right.
That's not our final story.
That's
What
right.
happened this week is not our final story,
That's
and that
right.
is not the story we're going to promote. That's not going to be our brand. And so, you know, we're glad to be here to talk about discipline, but there's so much more that's going on in our schools, and that's what we want to continue to stay focused on.
That's right. Good job.
All right, board members, I want to commend you all for the work that you're doing. So, if there are no, were there any others? Okay, you through. Okay.
I didn't even start. I just want to say good job. I know she done forgot about me down here, but good job on what you all are doing. I love you, Miss Williams. That's what I do.
Okay.
But good job on what you all are doing. I totally agree. You know, congratulations to all the ones that have made honor roll. We appreciate your hard work. That's all I have.
Okay.
Now I'm through.
Okay. I would like to say to you, to all of you, high school, you're to be commended for your efforts, and thank you for the positiveness. There's only a little bit, when you see the negative, people create, but with the reports that you have given tonight, there's still good in the North Rock School District.
Absolutely.
And I thank you for that. I thank you for being honest. And whatever we can do as a board, I can assure you, it will happen. I didn't say I think it would. What did I say? It would. Thank you, and you may be dismissed.
And y'all invite us to whatever you're having at your school. I mean, we like food trucks too. Just saying. I came to the parking lot parlay, didn't I? I showed up.
No, we were just going to showcase the 3 schools. The same
Okay.
thing with.
I never
All
get
right.
invited to anything.
I know we were showcasing the 3 schools, and I know because of the pandemic that is out, that a lot of you do not feel comfortable being in this small room. And if you do not feel comfortable, and I'm talking to principals, that tonight I thought all of you were going to report, but since you are not, you can be excused because it's a little hot up in here, and I don't want anybody getting sick, or if you don't feel comfortable, and there are you principals out there just like us, you still have that fear of being close and tight in. So you can, it's your choice, and it's nothing against you, okay? Thank you. We can move along, Dr.
Thank you all for
Pulaski.
coming.
Well, they're here for the academic side. So the 2021-2020 NWEA academic first and second quarter data. So I'll ask Dr. Hooper, Mrs. Smith, and Dr. White back, and Leanne Alexander, Miss Alexander, who's going to share, and they'll hit the highlights of on the academic side. I know we've spent an hour and 20 minutes on discipline, and rightfully so, and we will try to speed through this one but hit the highlights.
So good evening again, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Pulaski. Again, 4 main goals of this presentation is to convey the meaning and purpose of the NWEA MAP growth assessment, and again, to display the predicted outcomes of student performance for the ACT Aspire that will be upcoming in April, May-ish. And to, again, look at our subgroups as it pertains to our student population, and to present on the top campuses that are projected to show minimal growth, but we know that we can always change that trajectory, and to provide a snapshot of the district's first and second quarter of the data. As far as the MAP growth is concerned, it is a standard measurement for measuring the performance of K through 12 math, reading, language arts, or language usage in science. It is personalized for each individual student, whether they are on, above, or below grade level. And MAP growth can be utilized as a predictor, which we will discuss in a few moments. A benefit of the NWEA MAP growth for families and students is that they are actually able to take their scores and place it into the College Explorer tool to see which colleges and universities they're on track to enter. As you can see on the slide deck, these are some of the areas that they are assessed on. And again, as I expressed in our former presentation in our last board meeting, one of the highlights of the map is that it shows growth over time, just as our accountability does as well. As it pertains as our overall projection for the district, so as you can see, this is broken down by performance level. Again, this is only as it pertains to projection, as it's predicted to be, okay? Again, we can always change that trajectory based on what we put in place for our students. An overall total of 77.9% of the student population are projected to perform on the level of in need of support or close to, okay? That is broken down by campus. And as we go into our subgroups, it gets larger for our students in the Black subgroup. So 87.8% of our students are projected to perform in the level of need of support or close to. Our Hispanic, 81.9% in the levels of the in need of support and close to. And for our white students, 54.4% are projected to be in the area of need of support and close to. As we go down into the math content area, again, I only focused on math and reading for the projection for ACT Aspire. So about 82.5% total overall our district is supposed to, is projected to perform on the level of in need of support or close to. As we go into our subgroups, our Black students are predicted to be at 92.1% total in need of support and close to together. Our Hispanics, 87.3% in those two levels of in need of support and close. And our white students, 58.1% in the areas of in need of support and close. As it pertains to the top campuses of focus, just based on the support that we receive from the state, currently, as many of you all know, we are in the level 4. So just to be transparent, so there are no surprises, so everyone knows 7th Street, Boone Park, and Ridge Road are on the monitoring area. 7th Street is in the area of comprehensive support from the state, and Boone Park and Ridge Road are in the area of additional targeted support and improvement because of the subgroup of special ed, and my colleague Leanne will speak to that as well. The high school / academy, again, because those campuses are combined together, that campus was only highlighted because of the participation rate. They need at least 95% of their students to participate on the ACT Aspire. So we really have to monitor when it comes to testing the number of students that are participating in their ACT Aspire. And at this time, elementary, we will focus on those campuses.
So as my colleagues come up from 7th Street, Mr. Collins, Glenview, Ms. Randall, Boone Park, Mr. Orbona, and Ridge Road, Mr. Howe, I would like to say that just as we saw the discipline, and just as several of my colleagues mentioned, this data does not define who we are. It does not define the great work that's happening on our campuses. These principals, these leaders are working very hard to implement new curriculum, which we've had basically for 3 years, but only really this half year that we've had without, we've still had pandemic, but they continue to do a great job. And again, you know, we look at the whole child, we look at triangulating data. And so I just want you to keep in mind that this is one data point. And I want to invite them up just to share just very briefly a few things that they have in place. I've met with all principals for their mid-year conferences. They've disaggregated the data. I'm so proud of how they've come in with me, and we've looked at the data from first quarter to second quarter, you know, what their focus is, what their leadership teams are working on. This data is at the forefront, and nobody knows it better than they do. So I appreciate them all, and I will get out of the way.
Good evening again. Want to go ahead and go over the data in terms of what you see, and then also in terms of what we're doing about it. So some things that we've already put into place. Yes, our data has our projections not looking where we want it to be. And so some things that we've already put into place is trying to determine the essentials of what the curriculum entails, trying to make it so that these are the must-dos that you must do with the curriculum in order for our students to have success. So we've already had professional development on that, but it's also the follow-up from our MCLs to be able to support the teachers in terms of what needs to be done in the classroom. We had one teacher, kindergarten, I'm going to shout her name out, Robin Arndt, had amazing data when it came to what we saw. It was just amazing. And so we've already put into place observations in her classroom in terms of what is it she's doing that can be replicated throughout the building, because her success can be replicated throughout our building. And so we have got to put those things in place that she is finding that is working. Also, in terms of looking at my brain just went blank.
Okay, Mr. Howe.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate
No
that. But just our intervention time, and I'm going to speak to, our additional targeted support. We were putting that about, 3 or 4 years ago because of our SPED population not performing. And so there were 2 stipulations in order for us to get out of watch. And we have not been able to get out of watch because of the pandemic and everything that's been shut down and the grades that haven't been given since. But the 2 stipulations were that we had to show upward growth for 2 years, and then we also had to get about 10 point of a percentage increase. And so we have not made the 10-point increase. However, we have had an upward trend ever since. So every year we've taken the test, we've had an upward trend with our SPED population. And so that's been amazing. And part of that has been the systems we put in place that we continue to look at are what I need time for our students to be able to get the supports they need. And that is an area that we talked about this afternoon with the instructional leadership team in terms of what is it we're doing with these students to make sure that the needs are being met the most effective way. And so we're going in observing, we're going in doing focus walks, looking at, okay, how are we meeting the needs? What is the data showing that these kids have to have? And every minute has to be accountable and has to be purposeful.
So just very quickly, let me explain what you're looking at here on the slides. Again, because I have so many campuses and so many grade levels, you'll see that the blue indicates the reading map data for kindergarten for each, or kindergarten 1st, 2nd through 5th for each campus. The light blue is the RIT score that would be considered the norm across the nation, and then the dark blue would be the actual school score as it pertains to each grade level. So, for example, on this one, the norm RIT score for a kindergartner in the fall was 136.65. Those kindergartners scored 136.8, so actually met and exceeded a little bit there in the fall. So, the target moves because as we're learning more things, we expect students to grow. And so 146.28 was the norm RIT score for this winter, and the Ridge Road kindergartners came in at 144.9. So this repeats all the way through for every school, every grade level, and then when you get down to the red bars, that is the exact same setup, just for math data as well. So who wants to go next? All right, Mr. Orbona.
All right, good evening, Madam President, Dr. Paluski, members of the board. One of the things I would like to highlight at Boone Park is our success. Our NWA data is not where we want it to be, but I would like to highlight that every single grade level in every single of the subjects that are tested in reading, in math, and in science, we showed growth. Now, it's not the growth we would like to have. It's not the numbers we are wanting, but we did show growth. And I applaud my teachers for their hard work and everything that they're doing in the midst of the pandemic to show that. Our leadership team is meeting. We are looking at our data. We're looking at ways to improve. Some of the things that we have been doing is intensive interventions. We have small groups that are pulled out by teachers every single day for math and for literacy. As Mr. Howe said, we go and we monitor those. I'm seeing, like, for instance, I want to brag on my librarian, Ms. Hastings, who pulls a literacy group, and she has a group of fourth graders, and they are diving deep into skills that they need for the ACT Aspire that also flow over into the NWEA. And I want to brag on my art teacher, Mr. Shipman, who pulls a group of math students in various grade levels, and he's doing high-level math with them and pushing them and scaffolding them up to get those skills that they need. And that's happening all over the building. And I applaud Ms. Barker for helping the volunteers get back in the building. And we now have mentors who are starting to work with our students. And as I'm walking around doing walkthroughs and observations, I love the opportunity that our students have to be with those mentors, and either in small groups or one-on-one, which I see a twofold benefit. One, it's helping our discipline as those students are building those relationships with those mentors. And two, it's helping them get those academics because they're reading with our students and they're doing math with our students, and our students are seeing the importance of the community saying, hey, we want you to do this, and the importance of that. So we're doing those. We have a data document that we look at digitally that all of our teachers have now put their NWEA data into, and in PLCs every week we're looking at, okay, who are those students we really need to target on and focus on, and what are the skills we need to focus on. And not only we're doing that at our PLCs, where we be looking at those skills to be ready for the ACT Aspire and really look at in those targeted areas in math and in literacy over the next few weeks that we need to really review and make sure that we're hitting, and to help our students be even more prepared for the test. And those are some of the things that we're doing and continuing to help our students be academically ready.
Thank you. Before Mr. Collins speaks, let me just say that the first presentation directly ties to this presentation. So if you have disruption in the classroom, obviously the learning is not taking place, or it's interrupted. So, it kind of chicken and the egg syndrome there, but so we've got to work on all of those areas. So, Mr. Collins.
I get really excited when I talk about data, so you might excuse me for a little bit. Last time I sat here, I told the board, I kind of made a promise that our data would go up, and that's exactly what it did. Looking at where we were, I look at data trends from previous years to now. Our students are growing. It's not growing as far as meeting that state benchmark, but going from here to up here, that's a huge win for me. Things that we have in place that are working, that we're being even more intentional on, closing out the school year, is our small groups, our interventions, and our win time, what I need. We have shifted our schedule to where in the afternoons, all of our specialty teachers are pulling groups, basically individualizing those assessments, those worksheets, those assignments for those students. We have intervention binders that's set up for our MCLs that those students are working towards, whether it be letter naming, phoneme recognition, all those things that are helping our students build a foundation of reading. That's what they're being pulled out to do. And it's showing on our NWEA data. And so I just want to commend all my teachers for our hard work, and I also want to give a shout out for our kindergarten teachers, because setting the foundation is so important. And our kindergarten teachers, even though we were down one kindergarten teacher for a while due to medical reasons, and we have a long-term sub, our kindergarten students are right at that benchmark. And so we can keep on growing them through the years. You will see a major shift at 7th Street. Other than that, working with Solution Tree has been phenomenal. When we're talking about creating common formative assessments, restructuring how we do our PLCs and making it more intentional, data-driven, assessment-driven, and making sure that whatever we get out of that, we're implementing in the classroom, and we're also implementing in our small group time, our win time, and our intervention time. All that being said, if you look at the trends from previous years, 7th Street is in a good space. It's not where we want to be, and I tell my teachers we still have a long way to go, but we're on the upward bound. Last but not least, another data trend is ACT Aspire are projected to go, we have a handful of students that are ready, that projected to be ready on an ACT Aspire. From previous years, we had 0. That even though that's a small win, I'll take that win. So.
Thank you.
Any question? Any question?
Yeah, just a question for.
One
more.
Ms. Randall.
Oh, one more.
She's gonna be quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I came in just so late. I had to run and go get my son, single parent issues, so, had to jump out, get him real quick and come back. Yeah, so, but I'm back. And just to reiterate everything that these gentlemen were saying, we're also working with Solution Tree as well. Last year, we saw a need in our staff and developing the teachers, and if you don't develop them, they can't in return develop the students. So it was very important that we get the training and provide them with the resources that they need in order to be successful with the students. And just like they said, we've had tremendous growth. We've grown. We're not at grade level, which is where we aspire to be, but it's just like running a marathon. You don't just buy the shoes and then go out the next day and run the marathon. You've got to put things in place, and over time, and we know in schools that are low socioeconomic, it's going to take at least 5 years to make systemic change. And so we are putting those things in place and pouring into our teachers so that they are able to determine the essential standards, know exactly what they're teaching and the concepts and how to teach it. And that is the work that we've put in this year with Solution Tree. They've come in, we've unpacked our standards. The teachers have made rubrics to determine how to assess the students. We've made common formative assessments so that we're assessing more frequently and that kids have multiple opportunities to reach the achievement level. And it's not just a one-stop shop. Whether you get an A, B, or C. You have multiple times to grow and improve. Really expanding on those Tier 2 and Tier 3 time, which is small groups and intense interventions, and making sure we are giving the students exactly what they need in order for them to grow. And, the growth that we're seeing, again, is not where we should be, but growth shows that what we are doing is working. It's just not at the rate that it needs to be right now. And, with discipline and things like that, I wasn't up here for that, but we have our set of issues as well. And it takes a lot of time away from the classroom. And so, having those structures in place, the need for someone that can help de-escalate and calm down students so that they can be successful and stay in the class instead of having to send them home where we know they're not getting the instruction that they need. And then we were already behind before the pandemic, and so the pandemic has just compounded those efforts. And so I commend my teachers at Glenview for working hard every day to ensure that the students are getting what they need and that I'm making sure that teachers get what they need.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just any one of you can ask the question, or you, Dr. Smith. And you mentioned assessment. I think that's key. Once a child is assessed and you find out they're lagging behind, do we have the resources and the infrastructure to give one-on-one attention and education to that child?
I'll answer for my building. We don't have enough staff to provide the one-on-one. We do a lot of small group. I think where we could probably put in some more funding and maybe training into what teachers actually do during that time. And I think that's where we tend to find the breakdown is. We know it's like taking your temperature. You know that you have a temperature, but what are you going to do to solve that? What is the actual cause and how do you fix it? And the problem is sometimes we don't know what to do. And so maybe some more training in that effort. I know our work with Solution Tree is going that way next year. That's our focus, is that small group time. I'm not sure with you guys working with Solution Tree, but it's what to do during that time. We need some more training on that.
Any other questions?
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, we have to get very creative. I know for 7th Street, coming down the line is professional development on reading strategies that work. And what I told the building is that anybody that comes to that PD will be have a small group of one-on-one. That's the secretaries, the custodian, anybody that wants to come to the PD that wants to learn these strategies that are that have been proven to work. Come, it's voluntary, but come on, and you will get this professional development. And then once you get that professional development, we will start putting kids in front of you, kids in front of that adult to kind of help our situation, because we don't have the personnel to do one-on-one. But that never has stopped me before, so I just kind of find creative ways to make it happen.
Good.
And I will just say before Mr. Abona, through all of my PGP conferences with my principals, hands down, Wilson is working. Wilson is working at the K2 level. These kids are getting these foundational skills because it's explicit and it's systematic instruction on the 5 components that it takes to be a good reader. So it's working. We just need a little more time.
And to answer your question, Mr. Still, for Boone Park, we do not have the resources to do one-on-one. One of the things we asked in our budget presentation, and I'm going to continue to ask for, is more interventionists. I know that's something that Mrs. Boss, my AP, and I would love to see at Boone Park, is more highly trained interventionists, potentially retired teachers or other individuals who, would be willing to be trained in Wilson and Eureka Math and the different curriculums that we're using, as well as a dean of students to help with the student discipline that would help us keep more students in the classroom so that we can have, more education, more academics.
So I can speak for secondary. So no, we don't have that human capital to support that. However, what we did do this year is we did increase reading teachers. So more critical reading teachers at the high school level, also critical algebra at the high school level, middle school strategic reading, and we're looking at adding additional reading teachers next year as well. So that's what we're doing for secondary, just increasing those courses that students can take that need that extra support.
Thank you.
I've got a question that I'm not asking for any pointed purpose or anything, but this district has had a lot of change, specifically at the superintendent level over the last 10 years or so. And, some people say, well, it doesn't affect the classrooms that much. In general, the reason I'm asking this question is you made the comment about it takes 5 years to implement and systemic change. Does that impact you guys at the building level? I mean, I know some things change, but how does it really impact the teachers when the school board's doing things? And I mean, does that really affect you in the buildings? And please be honest, I'm not, like I say, I don't have an agenda here. I just feel like we haven't been real stable as a district for a while, and I think it impacts our buildings, and I'm just curious what your opinion on that is.
I'll go ahead and start, sir. Going back to the curriculum, I've been in this district now. This is my 21st year in the district. I was in the classroom for many years before I went into administration. And, over those years, the curriculum has changed multiple times, like a roller coaster. And, just as I felt, especially from a classroom teacher and on the administration side, just as educators were really starting to get a curriculum and move forward, then we would have a change and, oh, here's a new curriculum. And from what I've seen, the curriculum we have now seems to the strongest curriculum that we've ever had in my 21 years in North Little Rock. And I hope that we have that time, those 5 years or more to put into it to be able to see that growth. I've just in the 2.5 years that we've enabled this curriculum, even with the, pandemics and raining insulation at Boone Park and ice storms and snowstorms and, phasing days, even with that, I see every day students who are growing, students who are learning, and students who are showing, from the bottom of the rope to the top of the rope on their, their comprehension in reading and or their understanding of math. I'm seeing that growth.
Okay.
And just to echo, everything that just Steve said, one of the other things we've had to deal with is not just necessarily changes in district, but changes in assessments with the state. I mean, we've gone
I was
through
gonna ask
some
that too.
major shifts in assessment. And so when I first came into district, we were under an Arkansas benchmark. And so we knew that thing backwards and forwards. And we knew how to support the students and what we needed to do. We went to another change, then we went in this change, and there's another change coming. And so it's that constant adjustment.
Well, okay, I won't, unless anybody wants to say something. Okay, go ahead.
Just too, with the NWEA and the ACT Aspire they give a prediction, but it really is not the same type of test. And even on ACT Aspire, it tests things that are not necessarily our standards. And when you take the NWEA, it tests everything. Well, like in our instance, the things that we taught first semester, we saw tremendous growth on, but there's some things that we haven't gotten to yet, but they're still tested on. So you're not going to see that growth just by this one picture. And so, having the things coming down the pipeline with the new testing after next year, it's going to go back to that aligning to the state standards and making sure that what we're teaching and what we're asking kids to perform on is what we're asking them to do every day. It's not going to be separated, we're just stopping to take this test.
Okay. Well,
So-
and the reason I ask that question is because there's a balance between progress, trying to push forward and improve, and consistency, and that's very difficult. I grew up in North Little Rock schools. It seemed like we had the same superintendent for long stretches of time, and things can get stagnant, so you don't want that, but you want to push change, and I'm having difficulty with how there's just been a lot of change over the last 10 years, and eventually we have to land somewhere and stay there. So I appreciate you speaking up. I know I put you in an uncomfortable position, but thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to make a comment that this data shows what you said, Ms. Smith, is true. You see that the younger kids are right there, they're just right there, and then you go to the older kids and they're not. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out over the next few years.
Oh, you all are doing a phenomenal job, and I appreciate you very much. And thank you for your services, okay? And if there's anything else you would like to ask the board?
And I would just say they're open for visitors, so
Okay.
come,
Yes,
come see
please,
what great things they're doing.
Okay, and you next?
Yes, good evening
Okay.
again. I'm going to go ahead and ask secondary principals to come on up. Mr. Kane, Mr. Clark, and Dr. St. Louis. So here's what I need you to know. This is what you won't see in the data. Dr. Hooper presented on ESSA School Index a few weeks ago to you all, and she talked about growth, and she talked about that score of an 80. And I'm happy to report that the high school met that growth score of an 80, COE, 81, and then 6th grade campus and 7th, 8th grade campus, they were at 78.8, very close for those two campuses. So growth truly is being made. So I'm going to turn it over to them, same format, there again, to talk about their school's data.
Good evening again. Starting off with celebrations, and when I start looking at the data, it makes me very proud to be the principal of North Little Rock Middle School 6th grade campus. Got an incredible staff that works very hard, and as you've heard from other principals, our data is not quite where we want it to be. However, we're not going backwards or going forwards. Our students are growing, and the data that we're going to target tonight is going to show that. From the fall to the winter NWA test, we had an overall increase of 2.8 points for reading. Our African American population increased 2.7 points. Hispanic population maintained. We had a lot of new incoming students from other countries. that had to take the test because they got here during that window. And then our Caucasian increased 0.7. Math, which is where we have struggled for years, showed a 2.8 point increase also. The African American population, again, was 2.7. Hispanic was 0.6. And our Caucasian was 4.1 points increase. That was just from the fall to the winter NWA test. So again, we're moving forward. We're not stagnant, but we are moving forward. One other celebration, and Dr. White kind of stole my thunder there, but I'll echo that, is when we started looking at our ESSA score from last year, the 2020-2021, there was only, and again, I'm going to speak for Mr. Kane also on this one, there was only 3 middle schools in the metro area that had a higher score than we did. That was the overall score. That growth score that Dr. White had just mentioned, there was only 2 middle schools higher than us. And I'm talking about Little Rock, the county, Jacksonville, all those schools that surround us. There was only 2 other schools that were in front of us, and that's out of 11. Again, number 1 is where we'd like to be. However, I just wanted to present that to the board that we are making gains that we have not made before. We were 1.23 points away from meeting the state, that 80 mark. We were 78.88. And when we dove down into the data that we presented to our staff in the February professional development, that was 5 students. If we would have grown, we would have met that mark. 5. So what we're doing now is we have a deeper understanding of what it takes to get those students moving to that next level. And when you look at our data, is what Dr. Hooper showed, the overall data, we do have a lot of students in that need of support area. There's too many there. The one thing that data doesn't show, but when you break down and look at the slide that you're at now, this is the overall growth score. So we're moving students, we just hadn't quite got them from that in need of support to close to ready, and so on. But they're moving. So what we're doing is we're diving into that data, starting to pinpoint individual students instead of groups. We are getting into classrooms and starting to look at what the district has implemented, the CEIQ, where we're really getting into and giving feedback, effective feedback to our teachers. Sometimes it's hard when we're dealing with discipline, but we are trying to push ourselves as much as we can to get into the classroom. The attendance data is really, I'm not going to say it's hurting us, but it's not where we want it to be. Some of that is due to the pandemic, students missing because they've been quarantined or in isolation. That does affect that score when they're not able to be in the classroom. But some of the things that we are trying to improve is we have started after-school tutoring. We are in our 3rd week, and we are targeting math and reading. And we are implementing and reiterating what the teachers are teaching in the classroom. That's what we're focusing on. It's not just a catch-all, come in, get on the computer, and let's see what you can do. Our after-school teachers are teaching the content that they're teaching in class. So it's basically a review. I think that is all for me.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
All right, I'll jump right in there. Mr. Clark said a lot of things I was going to say, so I'll just cut to some of the other things that I have a little bit different. Of course, if we want to celebrate some of our NWEA scores from fall to winter, we were looking at our 7th grade reading scores across the board for all ethnicities. We increased. It was about an average of a 1.8 total overall increase. Our black students increased by 2.5 points. Hispanic students increased by 2.9 points, and our white students increased by 0.8 points. And then to also look at our growth in our math for 7th and 8th grade. 7th grade increased by 2 points total. Again, all ethnicities increased in that to help that. So again, our black students 1.2 points, Hispanic students were 1.8 points, and white students were 2.9. And then our growth in math for 8th grade was a 0.8 increase. Again, we still had all ethnicities increasing. Our black students 0.3, Hispanic 1.8, and also our white students 0.6. So again, we're seeing growth, but again, just like what Mr. Clark said, we're just not seeing it at the rate that we would like to see. You know, we wanna start looking at systems and things that we put in place that we can see that growth and see it and really be proud of it. You know, one of the things that we talk to the teachers is we're growing. You know, just kind of like what you said earlier, Ms. Walker, you know, we're okay, but we still want to continue to improve and get better because it's just going to do better for our kids and what we're looking at. Some of the things that we're putting in place on our campus, you know, of course, it's big at the 7th and 8th grade during that age and time to really sit down and start working with the students so they know what their score on the NWA says and means, and also the skills and things that they're lacking so that we can use time during the school day to really intervene for them and do what we need for them. So our teachers are really doubling down on meeting with our students saying, hey, this is where you are. This is what we need to do to get you where you want to be. Where do you want to be? You know, and asking those questions and setting those goals for them. Also, too, during our intervention times, our SPED teachers and math teachers, they do a good job of pulling students where they work on deficiencies from our NWEA testing and also through their common formative assessments, because we know we got to go back and reteach those skills. You know, of course, we're looking at a 48-minute class period, and we know if we're dealing with middle schoolers, you know, it kind of takes processes and times to get that together. So that means we have to find extra time in our day to go back and reteach those skills that we know our students are missing. And then, of course, again, digging deep into those subgroups in both math and reading. You know, hey, we just got to be real frank about if our students are growing and if they're not. And through our collaborative meetings with all our core subject teachers together to really have those discussions and figure out what supports we can put in place to make sure our students are succeeding. Also, too, just to reiterate what Mr. Clark said, as an instructional leadership group, all us principals, we've been getting trained in CEIQ, which we're training our assistant principals, and also our MCL, so that we can all go in with a coaching mindset of how we can improve instruction in our classroom. Because again, if we improve that instruction, we know that our achievement for our students will be that much better. So using that together to kind of center around and get things focused to where it needs to be. You know, when we look at the data, of course, discipline always plays a part in what we have. Again, when you look at our numbers from before, yes, we had decreases, but again, what I said earlier, if students are not in the classroom, whether that's being sent to the administrator's office, being sent out of the building, they're not getting the instruction they need. If they're not getting the instruction they need, we're not going to see the growth that we want to see. So, of course, we want to make sure that we are looking at that data and adjusting as we need to meet the needs of our students. And then attendance as well. Yes, we've had a pandemic, but, you know, we have to now, you know, work on moving past that to say, hey, we need our students in the building. All right, so that means meeting them where they are, starting these home visits, and, you know, I guess we say porch visits, maybe not home visits just yet, but just thinking outside the box to reach our students and tell them we need you in the building. And also looking at our grades, making sure, like I said, we're in our 3rd week of after-school tutoring. Make sure that we are utilizing that properly. Again, we do have a focus, just like the 6th grade campus, on math and reading, but we also look at the other core subjects as well, because they all play a part in supporting math and reading also. So we do that during that time. And that's the same with our interventions, again, our advisory time with our SPED teachers and our math teachers, pulling students as they see the need through their grades, through what NWEA is telling us, through our map data, to make sure that we address those deficits and those needs for that. So I think that's it on my end.
Mr. Green. Dr. St.
Well, good evening again. I'm going to go through this very fast because I do want to support our varsity girls basketball team as they are in the round 2 of the state basketball tournament. So I do want to be able to support them. But I will just say quickly that, you know, we're celebrating our students in reading and in math. We've seen an increase, especially in our math, in 9th and 10th grade. In algebra and geometry, you saw an increase with our NWA assessment. As well as in the subgroups of black and white students, we did see an increase in both reading and in math. And so I'm glad to, see some progress. We have a lot of work to do in the high school. So for myself, as a first year leader here in the school district, I'm working to make sure I understand the data and so I can lead my school better. And just some of the things that we're currently doing, I do want to shout out our school leaders and our MCLs and the work that they're doing with our PLCs to be able to look at all the data. So the NWA is not the only data that we want to look at, but we're looking at, the CFAs, their summative assessments, ACT, all of those things, that talk about what our students are doing in the classroom, where we want to utilize and continue to utilize the NWA data for student interventions during our flex time. Growing our teachers is really important. So being in the classrooms is something that I focus on a lot. I know some of the teachers probably say a little too much, but we do focus walks as assistant principals. We just got done, actually, all of us administrators shadowed a student for an entire school day to really understand their experience at North Little Rock High School. And so using that feedback, understanding where our students and teachers are in the classroom to really grow our teachers so we can grow our students. And then, of course, as a leadership team and with my assistant principals and our building leadership team, we continue to look at data around attendance, academic, and behavior, because all of that comprises what we see here, and we want to grow in all of those areas, and that will continue to grow in our NWA.
Very good. Very good. Anyone?
I'm good. Good report.
Good. One question. Could you tell us, I know it's March, how about how's the graduation rate looking? Graduation numbers looking?
Well, we hope we're going to continue to increase the graduation rate. We're working with our seniors, continue to meet with them. I appreciate our counselors. And so I'm hopeful, okay? I'm hopeful to see an increase in our graduation rate this year.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen, also. You all did a phenomenal job, and thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Leanne Alexander?
Yep. So welcome.
Let's go quickly. I know y'all have had a lot of information tonight.
Dr. Pelosi said that you could paraphrase it.
Gonna go
hit
quick.
the super highlights.
Hit the high points.
Okay.
Tonight, we're going to talk about the NWA scores for the special education subgroup. I just wanted to say real quickly that I want to tell you that the name and the theme for the Special Services Department is We Are the Dream Team. And I want to say that again tonight because for the second year in a row, we have had great amount of growth in all areas, K through 10 in NWA from fall to winter. I'm going to highlight for you the 3 campuses that had the least amount of growth and then those that had the greatest amount of growth, but I wanted to make sure you understand that all of our campuses had growth in special education. Okay, so I am going to just kind of skip through that part. Just the demographics for special education. We have 54% black males, 16% black females, 10% white male, 9% white female, then 6% Hispanic male and 2% Hispanic female, and then 2 or more races make up that last 3%. And when you look at the different disability areas, the 3 largest categories are speech language impairment, other health impaired, and specific learning disabilities. And I just wanted to highlight that because by definition, those 3 disability categories have an average intelligence. And so that's real important when you're looking at our scores and what we're doing. So I wanted to show you first the schools with the least amount of growth and the schools with the most growth. The least amount of growth were at Boone Park, Indian Hills in 6th grade. While they still did have some growth, would like to see bigger growth. But what I wanted to shout out, and I wish Mr. Collins was still here because he doesn't know this yet. But if you'll look at the school with the greatest amount of growth, that was 7th Street Elementary for our special education students with a 12.71% growth in math and 9.31 in reading, which will really, really help that school's letter grade when they get to the ACT Aspire. Because to grow a special education group counts for a lot of points in your ESSA score. So that's good news. I wish he was here. So I'm going to go real quickly. I did these by grade level. The blue is reading and the red is math. And I'm just going to kind of highlight for you what those growths were by grade level really fast. So for kindergarten, if you will look For reading in special education, they grew 8.75 points from fall to winter. But in math, this is what's so astounding. In math, in kindergarten for special education, they grew 30 points, and they scored above the norm for kindergarten math, which is 1.61, which is phenomenal at a kindergarten level. So I'm real proud of our special ed teachers that are teaching math at the kindergarten level, because that's great progress. For first grade, we had growth of 8.46 points in reading and 8.86 points in math for special ed. Did I skip one? Second grade. For second grade, we had 7.7 points for reading and, I got on the wrong one, sorry, 8.46 points for reading and 8.86 points for math. For third grade, for reading, they grew 7.7 points. In math, they grew 13.58 points, and that's also phenomenal. Fourth grade, we had an 11.54 points growth in reading and 9.2 points growth in math. In fifth grade, they had 10.59 points growth in reading and 4.79 points growth in math. Moving on to, I skipped one, sixth grade. As you see, you're going to see a trend as we go up, just like in the regular education. Those points of growth decrease as we get higher with the grades, and I think that has to do with our implementation of the curriculum, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But at sixth grade, we had 3.38 points growth in reading and 2.33 points growth in math. In seventh grade, 8.41 points growth in reading and 2.36 in math. And I want to just do a big shout out to our seventh grade reading teacher, Miss Elizabeth McMahon. And if Mr. Kane was here, he'd be yelling her praises too. She's really implemented that Wilson reading system, and that 8.41 points of growth is a big deal at seventh grade. And then at eighth grade, 5.5 points growth in reading and 3.74 points growth in math. At ninth grade, we had 2.92 points growth in reading and 3.74 points growth in math. And at 10th grade, 5.5 points growth in reading and 3 points growth in math. Whew, I did that fast. I hope y'all got that.
We kept up.
So I just wanted to tell you some of the systems we put in place and the reasons I think we've seen 2 years of growth. When I became director in 2019-20, I was allowed to hire a curriculum specialist. That's Dr. Natalie McGill, who's out of my department. So as we were implementing the Wilson reading system, we also had someone to support the implementation of that system. For special education, we used Wilson reading system, which is that level tier 3 support. So at the regular ed level, you're using Foundations and Just Words for elementary and secondary, but we're using Wilson reading system. From 2019 to the present, we have sent the majority of our teachers through the Wilson reading system practicum. It is an intense, hard program. They get college credit, they get a certificate on their license, and I think that's really helped. Wilson comes in and observes them, they have to do lesson plans, and they have to do additional work with one student for 45 minutes a day. So I think that's really helped as well, and we're continuing to send our new teachers through that as they come in. We added a 6th grade special education reading position at the 6th grade campus this school year, and we are at phase 1 of implementing Eureka Math. And if any of you have ever heard of Eureka Math or work with it, it's very complicated and it's very difficult. So for our special ed teachers, we did a training this summer with the company on how to implement Eureka Math with special education students. And a big shout out to Lisa Woods and Dr. McGill, who worked very hard to put that together to show them scaffolding, how to do lessons at a slower pace. And we're going to try to do full implementation by the next school year. Also, we have a special education PLC time every other Wednesday. It's from 3:30 to 5:30. It is totally voluntary by our teachers. But when you are a special ed teacher in an elementary school, you are kind of on an island by yourself. It's just you or maybe you and one other self-contained teacher. So this is a time for them to bounce ideas off each other and to work together as a team. Steps, we're really excited at the high school. They are, the Department of Special Education for the state is really pushing for inclusive models. And so we have partnered with our 9th grade academy and the Ford NGL, and we are going to do a pilot program with all inclusion for our 9th grade students. This is what my doctoral dissertation is on, how inclusive practices can increase students' performance on tests. And so that's what we're going to be implementing at 9th grade and COE next year. So hopefully next year I'll be able to come back and show you how that's worked, and our scores will increase even more. We're going to continue training our teachers to use the NWA to write their IEP plans and goals. They can find those areas of weakness, those deficits, and they write those goals to specifically address those areas. We're going to continue to use our NWA data to determine the student's need for that level Tier 3 intensive instruction. And we want to consider adding a special education reading teacher at the high school so that we have teachers trained K through 12 in that Tier 3 Wilson reading system. Whew, that was fast. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Great job. Just like to say, keep up the good work. You got us spoiled a little bit.
Keep
up the good work, and to you and your team, you guys have a very close-knit group, and keep working hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander.
I don't have any questions. Good job, good presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
No questions. Next, Dr. Pelosi.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, up next, the last item for our workshop, 2022-2023 proposed raises for both classified and licensed employees. I'll ask Mr. Jacob Smith, Executive Director of Human Resources, and Mr. Brian Brown, our Chief Executive Officer, Financial Officer, to provide an overview on what's being proposed.
Board members, Madam President, Dr. Paluski, thank you guys for having us this evening. What you have before you that was discussed at the last board meeting by the LPPC and CPPC presentation is what we have arrived at within those two groups. The board charged both Finance and Human Resources to find what we could do because of the state of our salary schedules, pandemic, the work that everybody's doing. And that's what we did. And so we took that charge. We got with both groups. We all sat down at the table. Mr. Brown ran the numbers and arrived at a plan, a cost savings plan associated with money that we might be able to free up over the next couple years to not only do this raise, but maybe even another. And so we've presented that plan to the board already. And this is the phase one of that plan. With that being said, the money allocated basically at each group, the classified staff decided to allocate their money through all of their salary schedules for a $1,250 raise to each box. On the licensed side of the house, they decided to allocate their money by fixing the lanes within their salary schedule, and it equated to fixing the lanes and a $1,750 raise to each box. And so that was the will of both committees. And if you all have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer. But what you see before you is a 323-page report of all of the compression data of all of the salary schedules that exist within North Little Rock School District. And then you also have a cost summary for the classified side of the house and a cost summary for the licensed side of the house. And so whatever you guys would like us to look at and explain, we'll be more than happy to.
Question. You know, it was so much data, it was good. You had sections to let you know every penny, every dime. But I thought with this process, that as board members, we could have had more time. I know this workshop, I'm looking at the clock though, that we could have gone through this a little thorough, seemingly, whatever they agreed to. But to me, just looking at it and all the data and how you gave the pennies and the nickels, I didn't understand it, like cafeteria workers and people like that. I felt like, personally, I feel that I need a better understanding. The money I don't mind, but I don't understand how you got to the point of the money. But you got good documentation, I can tell you that. And I've separated it all. but there were points that I didn't understand, and maybe the other board members may have other opinion, they understood everything. But I went through it to 12:30 last night, and I still, and it's good, Mr. Brown, but do you understand, hear what I'm saying? What am I saying?
Yes, ma'am. I understand what you're saying. I think you can get lost in the data if you try to dig too deep. What we've done is provided you what we call the compression data behind there, the method that we get to.
Oh, this was compressed.
That's compressed, yes. What's important is looking at the salary schedules that have the red data on it. That's what's important, because those would be the new numbers for the new salary schedule. And then the cost summary, the end page where we summarize all of the additional costs that are involved in each of the salary schedules. So that's the important data. We put the compression data in there so that people will see where those numbers come from that are on the total expense report that we put at the end of both the license and the classified side.
I see for every salary schedule, you had all the data behind it for every penny that you spent.
Yes, ma'am.
But I guess, like you say, I read too much.
Yes.
And so, but I just wanted to be sure. I see like the 37,000 from the 36,000, and then you went on down, and this line, they're not paying nothing, but the other, after the first year, looked like that's when they started making the money. Did I get that confused? Yeah.
Well, so if you're looking at the reports, if some of those lines have zero, some of those lines may not have a person on the salary schedule in that lane, in that step. As people progress through our salary schedules, they move steps. So if you've got a lane there that has a $0 amount, that doesn't mean that that particular person's not getting a raise. It means most likely that there's no one on the salary schedule, so the cost is zero to the district because no one's on that lane in that step at that time. So you'll find some places throughout the compression data where there will be zeros in different places, or the dollar amounts are different. That means that there are a different number of people on that step than compared to another step.
Yeah, because see, on some of these job descriptions, you would say line number one is for, you had it itemized. When you get to the maintenance people, the cafeteria people, and the clerical people, everybody had a line. But see, I guess when I'm looking at the teachers, that there's no line, and I guess that's what was confusing me when I see the zeros.
So the teachers are different. So the licensed side of the house, the teachers are different than the classified side of the house. In each of the classified sides, we have different job classes. We have cafeteria workers, we have custodians, we have clerical, we have maintenance, we have
technology,
finance.
I read the whole
we have
thing.
all
I was
those
just trying to get an understanding, that's all.
So for all of those, there's a different salary schedule. On the teacher side, there's one schedule. It's just prorated. So we have one job class, which is teacher or administrator, and then those are prorated from the first schedule to different days. So like elementary principals are 220 days, secondary principals are 245 days, and that generates but they're all tied to just one schedule. There's no tie in the classified side.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Steele.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like you, it was a lot of information, and so I guess your plan is to present this tonight and then come back at the regular meeting for approval.
Yes,
so I won't ask all my questions, but I did have one. Why are the education steps for teachers? Why are the education steps and the experience different? I would think they would go
On the license side?
Yes.
Sir, is your question, why is the step from step 1 to 2 of educational experience not equal to the horizontal step in going from a bachelor's to a bachelor's plus 15?
Yes.
Well, That's the,
That
just
was
the
the will of the
design?
committee.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
sir.
was-
I mean, that was the design of the LPPC, is that whenever we equalized the left and right and we equalized the bottom to top, you'll notice that there's symmetry now to everything. Whenever we passed the last set of salary schedules, there wasn't symmetry equivalent all the way through because we couldn't afford at that time to do what we needed to do with where everybody was. And so there was more given on the front end. Remember whenever we had to get the minimum salaries,
Right.
teachers range up to $36,000?
Right.
That's what we did, and it was by design. Well, what we've come back and done now with the teacher equalization funds and the money through the cost savings plan is we've equalized everything. And so we had the ability to be strategic as far as how we go from left to right, but it's equalized now up and down. And that's a concept that you'll find in a lot of salary schedules, but there is a little bit of poetic license in that you do have some freedom to do that within your salary schedule.
Thank you.
Are there other questions, board members, about this?
Just, if you get a chance, can you send us the old salary schedule? Just, I think it's clearer when you compare what was to what you're, recommending.
Yes, ma'am. What I'll do is on your weekly board report, I'll make a document and I will place the red ones, which will be the new ones, and right behind it will be the old ones.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there is nothing else, we will now officially adjourn the workshop. The North Rock School District Office of the Superintendent Special Meeting Board of Education at the Administration Building on 2400 Willow Street, North Rock. Viewers will be able to watch the meeting live on YouTube, the YouTube channel to North Rock School Board. At this time, we are now open for public comments.
Is there a time limit?
Huh?
Is there a time limit to public comment?
3
Yes,
minutes.
if anybody come. If they're not, Ms. Colquick, is it possible that you have access to the policy that when they make public comments that it's 3 minutes, and the only way that they can speak beyond the 3 minutes, the board will have to approve it by a vote? So is that substantial to you, or do I need to get the other policy because we had to use this during pandemic?
It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
I mean,
I believe that's it.
Uh-huh.
I believe that's correct.
All right. You may come. Would you keep the time, Ms. Colquick?
Hi, my name is Jessica. I am a current junior at North Little Rock High School. I wanted to speak on behalf of my fellow classmates and make a small comment. I will not be using names, but I'm sure you all know who I'm speaking about. The grooming and abuse students have endured from a current chemistry teacher has left us feeling defenseless, scared, and frankly traumatized. I want to assure you that some of us know your legal limitations, and we are trying to spread word and educate others. With that being said, please protect us this time. We are all hopeful that you will take the correct measures that are in favor of students and our safety. Please move about this not in concern of image, but in concern of our safety and well-being. We are counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica. Hold on.
Are there other public comments? Are there other public comments? Are there other public comments? The meeting is now called to order. Ms. Colquitt, would you call the roll, please?
Dr. Redis, Ms. Williams,
Here.
Ms. Person-West,
Present.
Ms. Temple,
Here.
Mr. Zagreski,
Here.
Mr. Still,
Here.
Ms. Walkum.
Here.
For the executive session?
Yep.
Thank you. Executive closed session. The executive closed section per North Rock Policy 1.14A stating that private or closed discussion by the board may occur as part of regular or special board meetings. Executive sessions may be held only for the purpose of considering employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, discipline, or recognition of an employee, or to discuss matters of pupil punishment. If requested by the parent or legal guardian, no resolution, agreement, or motion considered in the executive session shall be legally binding unless the board reconvenes in public session and presents the item for vote of the membership. Further, Arkansas Code Title 25, Chapter 19, Section 106.2 states the specific purpose of the executive session shall be announced in public before going into an executive session. Please join me, board members, in the executive closed session for this. Of course. Yeah, they have to say, I have to say we're going to personnel, right?
Yes, please.
Personnel. Excuse me, I forgot a line. We're going in for personnel. Thank you.
to make the way in.
We got two people.
We're also going to amend the agenda.
Huh?
We're going to amend the agenda.
Okay. Soon as the other two get in.
Yep.
You can make that request.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep. As soon as we get started.
Girls are up. Or how much are they up? 8. 8? How late?
Oh, look, it just started.
Oh,
For 6 to 14 to 6.
Oh, excuse me. Eight oh nine.
I hope I don't get a broke foot.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to have an amendment to the agenda.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, the superintendent recommends adding to the agenda action item 4.5, COVID-19 mask mandate.
Madam Chair, I move that we add 4.5 mask mandate to the agenda this meeting, please.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that we have the mask mandate to the agenda. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. So the motion is carried. Thank you. Dr. Paluski?
Madam Superintendent, members of our Board of Education, action item 4.1 is a settlement agreement for due process, and I will ask my colleagues, Ms. Leon Alexander, Executive Director of Special Services, and Mr. Jay Beckett, our Chief Legal Counsel. Welcome.
Good evening again. Madam Chairman, members of the board, we are here tonight to present a settlement agreement to you for a due process hearing case. I just want to give you just a tiny bit of background information. We had a student who was harmful to himself and to others, caused injury to some staff. So we were recommending a change of placement. Before we could hold a conference to do that, the parents filed for a due process hearing. Mr. Beckett filed on behalf of the district an expedited due process hearing, and I will let you explain what that is, because I don't know how to explain expedited due process hearing.
Sure. When a district wants to change a student's placement and the parent does not agree to it, the district, unless the situation involves the student bringing a gun to school, drugs to school, or actually causing serious physical injury at school, the district has to file a due process complaint to show that the child is at risk of causing serious physical injury in the school, on school grounds.
So from there, we filed our expedited hearing. So I just want to give you just a little bit of information to educate this student in our district. He had a one-to-one teacher, his own classroom, a one-to-one paraprofessional, his own bus driver, his own bus aide, his own bus. He had speech therapy 60 minutes a week and occupational therapy 60 minutes a week. So I just did a brief calculation of what it cost to keep him here to educate him. Was about, hold on, I gotta get my glasses on, $125,000, give or take a few dollars. And if you look at our settlement agreement, I'm gonna go through each of those dollar amounts, but it is actually less money than it was costing us to educate the student here. The district was all along wanted to propose for him to go to a separate placement to Compass Academy. It's a academy in Conway that specializes in students with autism. So I just wanted to make the comparison. We send students to day treatment who need extensive services for their mental health. We pay a tuition of $9,500 to send students there. We send students to the School for the Blind and the School for the Deaf when they have very severe disabilities. So that's kind of the same comparison here. So I'm going to go into what the settlement actually is, and then tonight we're asking the board to approve the settlement so that we can go on and get the student placed. It's $10,000 for the tuition. It's year-round at Compass Academy in Conway. They're going to need to do evaluations to determine his placement there. We just estimated $1,800 just based on what we would charge for an evaluation here. They would like him to have a registered behavior technician not to exceed $60,000. And I wanted to describe to y'all what that is. Behavior technician is a paraprofessional with a high school degree that has had 40 hours of behavior training, and they have to pass an RBT exam. So they're asking for us to provide that cost to them because they do not have someone there on staff that does that. For transportation, the parents are willing to transport in the beginning and will pay the mileage rather than us transporting. And then I estimated that cost to be about $4,644 based on our mileage rate at 42 cents a mile in Conway's mileage. And then they are asking us to pay for their attorney's fees. We did start at an amount of $40,000. Mr. Beckett was able to negotiate it down. And I want to tell y'all what my feeling is on that, but the reason why we're agreeing to do that. We've been offering this same placement since the whole due process hearing started. Cody Keys represented us in the first one, and Jay represented us in the second one. They never would agree to the placement, and then all of a sudden, we went to the due process hearing. One witness testified, and they were ready to agree. So I feel like that a lot of attorney's fees were acquired because we had to go through so many hearings when we were offering to do this from the very beginning. But in the long run, I'll let Jay explain to you why we're going to go ahead and agree to the attorney's fees. I can tell you my opinion is because this student's been out of school since December, and he's been getting services at home. And in the best interest of this student, to go ahead and not have to continue to argue over attorney's fees and get him in school in a placement where he needs these intensive services. And I'll let you give your opinion on that.
Right, well, I'm recommending the settlement. We negotiated that the attorney's fees are high, but under the federal law that covers special education services in schools, if the parent files a due process complaint and prevails, the parent is allowed to recover attorney's fees under that statute. And despite the best efforts of our staff, this child he had some really maladaptive behaviors that made him very difficult to educate. And, in our opinion, and one of the reasons we're recommending the settlement is it was likely that the parent was going to prevail on some aspects of the due process complaint filed against the district, which would then entitle the parent and the attorney for the parent to recover fees. So that's why we're recommending that the board approve the settlement.
Okay, I'll call the roll for questions, okay? Ms. Walker?
Okay, so I did my math as well. So we're looking at $350,000 is what I kind of looked at it. The paraprofessional, the transportation, the $10,000 a year for the next 5 years, correct?
Oh, correct. Over 5 years, it will
Over
be.
the next 5
Yeah.
years, this is what we're looking at paying. Okay, so my question is, if we decline this, we're running the risk of possibly a larger settlement, correct?
Well, either a settlement or a judgment entered by a court with a lot more attorney's fees and a requirement, because private placement like this is allowed under the federal law. So the court could, if the hearing officer entered that order and a federal judge approved it, then we'd be looking at a significantly higher amount.
Okay, what were the attorney's fees that you negotiated?
Well, the initial demand was for over 41,000.
Right.
And we negotiated that down to 29.
Okay, so 29,000, because I didn't have that number for
Right.
my final. Is this covered under our insurance?
We do have some insurance coverage, but our deductible is high, so this is underneath our deductible.
It is, okay.
And all of this would be coming out of my budget. I already have a teacher, a para, I already have that budgeted and I'm paying for that. So those people, we have open positions right now for special ed teacher and para, so that's going to help us, that our teacher can go into some of our open positions, but we do have the money to cover these costs out of this special ed budget.
So we're absorbing those costs because we're losing a position. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, we have open positions right now that I haven't been able to fill the whole school year, so when this student leaves, that teacher and paraprofessional can fill in positions where we've got current vacancies.
Okay, all right. Okay, that concludes.
Mrs. Steele?
No question.
No question? Oh, Mr. J.T. Wukowski?
No questions. I think this is what we need to do in this situation. My only statement is we have to take care of every kid. And we're in this situation for various reasons, and I just want to make sure we're educating every child and providing for their needs. So I know that we work every day to do that. I'm just re-emphasizing it. Thank you.
Ms. Temple? Ms. West?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. At this time, we need to take a vote. May I have a motion, please? Yes, Mr. Wukowski.
Madam Vice President, I move to approve the settlement agreement for due process.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we move to settlement for the special education due process hearing. Are there any questions or comments? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those approved? None. So the motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor?
Yes. It's actually not an action item, but the next item is 4.2, the Licensed Personnel Policies Committee Report, and I believe Mrs. Barker, welcome, will be doing that report.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, members of the board. Before I begin this evening, I would like to take a moment to recognize all of our guests in the audience that we might assume that they're here for one issue, but I'm confident that they are here for the reorganization and to find out what happens with that. If that is your purpose for attending the board meeting tonight, would you just raise your hand, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Barker, and I'm representing the Licensed Personnel Policy Committee. Tonight's address is in response to Dr. Paluski's reorganization plan. The LPPC has held 2 meetings where the reorganization plan was discussed. The first was held on Monday, February 21st, 2022, and the second on Thursday, February 24th, 2022. The feedback that I will be sharing with you tonight has come from those committee meetings. We've had quite the turnover in our superintendent position in recent years. Dr. Paluski is the first one in recent history to come in and immediately start gathering data, speaking with stakeholders, and formulating a plan. We want to be the first to say that we admire this data-driven approach and that almost everyone in the district agrees that change needs to happen. And we have to start somewhere. The committee is in support of an eventual reorganization plan. However, the LPPC recommends that the board send the current reorganization plan back to Dr. Paluski for further consideration. We recommend that the board request the superintendent to provide more information before they take any further action on this particular item. The committee specifically requests that the superintendent work alongside the LPPC to create a survey to be sent out to staff and families for their input regarding the reorganization, as it seems that no formal data was collected to support such a massive change. We also ask that the superintendent use up-to-date academic data when he re-presents the reorganization plan. The LPPC asks that the 4 eliminated positions and their corresponding roles be compared to the new positions and their job descriptions. Finally, the LPPC requests a full financial audit of the initial and ongoing cost of this reorganization. As a committee that represents the licensed staff, we are concerned that employees have learned that they are losing their jobs in a public forum without any prior conversation. A change this large needs a lot of time, discussion, collaboration, and consideration before being approved and implemented. It seems this plan was created without any additional executive input or any staff feedback. The yellow sheet that you were provided at the last board meeting stated that the plan had been presented to the executive team on February 14th, 2022. The LPPC was informed by numerous executives that this meeting did not take place. The LPPC would have preferred this plan to have been created in collaboration with our current leaders instead of in isolation. It is clear the reorganization plan was not made through a collaborative process. In our meeting with Dr. Paluski, he mentioned that the next step is to gain stakeholder support. We disagree with this strategy. The committee feels that support and formal feedback should have been gathered prior to finalizing and presenting the plan. We have outstanding educators and leaders in this district, and the sum of all of us is always greater than one of us. The committee would have preferred for our superintendent to have had a courtesy conversation with these 4 individuals prior to the board meeting. Although Mr. Beckett advised him to go to the board first, there is no law against him providing this professional courtesy. We would have preferred he shared his vision with them, commended them for their service, and asked them where they see themselves fitting in with this reorganization plan as our district continues to grow and change. The way this was handled has blindsided 4 excellent and loyal educators. We understand it is the right and responsibility of the superintendent to organize the district as he sees fit. While the committee understands the superintendent is not here to make friends, and this was a business decision, the LPPC feels strongly that district culture matters greatly. Handling the reorganization in this way has severely affected our district culture, which will then affect our students. The LPPC values district loyalty and service. The committee is concerned that using the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act in this way has bred distrust within the district and a general sense of uneasiness. We have already received many concerned comments from our staff. Many of our staff members have been left to wonder, will my job be next? Most importantly, it does not give our employees an opportunity to grow within our district. Our teachers will not feel safe accepting or pursuing leadership opportunities within their own district if it looks like they will be removed at any point without reason or notice. We have been called a homegrown district, meaning that our leaders have come from our schools and know our district personally. We have families who have multiple generations working for the district and families with both spouses working for the district, employees who choose to send their children to our schools, and employees who are products of this district and have chosen to come back because they love this district. We would like to see our internal and local talent be given an opportunity to excel before we advertise positions nationwide. In Dr. Paluski's presentation, he mentioned an inconsistency of leadership. The committee also sees the need for consistent leadership. We're concerned that removing these 4 leaders while they are just now getting started causes more inconsistency. The LPPC would like to see the superintendent work to develop the talent we have in-house. Instead of dissolving these positions, we recommend using the current talent, current positions, and providing these leaders with any additional training, coaching, and or support required for them to meet the needs of this reorganization plan. With the additional positions, our leaders would be able to delegate their current responsibilities, achieving the focused support the plan seeks. We believe another reorganization plan could be made, very similar to this one, while still honoring the leaders we currently have in place. Another concern of the committee is that the reading data presented to support the reorganization plan is misleading. The ACT Aspire data that was used in the presentation was from spring 17, 18, and 19. The data cannot be tied to these 4 positions because none of these employees had been in their positions for a complete school year at this point. The committee has asked Dr. Paluski to clarify that it is not true that 80% of our students are reading below grade level. Instead, he communicated that in some grades, at some schools, 80% of students are below grade level. While we're not comfortable with any of our students reading below grade level, that is a very different statement than 80% of our entire population is not on grade level. Also, ACT Aspire cannot be used to determine if a student is reading on grade level. It is also not given to kindergarten through second grade students, nor to 11th or 12th grade students. So it does not encompass our entire student population. This data does not give a complete picture of where we are starting and where we are ending. The committee would like to see more current and appropriate academic data used when the new reorganization plan is presented. LPPC does not oppose change. In fact, we are often fighting for change. We would like to see more support given to our teachers and students, and the reorganization does that. It is our hope that any change this large be done through a process of staff feedback and collaboration instead of presented as a surprise to us all. We are all here to serve children. We are keeping all our students in mind when we advocate for our employees. After all, it is our employees who directly affect our amazing students. However, we cannot do that without being part of the conversation or while we fear for our jobs. I'll take questions.
Thank you for your report. What's next? Any comments? No. None? Comments? None? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you very
Williams.
much.
What's next, Dr. Paluski?
The next action item is 4.3, the Central Office Administrator Reorganization Plan Phase 1. I'll be asked to be joined up front by my two colleagues, Dr. Tori Hooper and our Chief Legal Counsel, Mr. Beckett. Good evening, Madam President, members of our Board of Education, our audience, our employees, and our community. For the record, my name is Greg Paluski, the proud superintendent of the North Little Rock School District. Joining me are my colleagues, Dr. Tori Hooper, our deputy superintendent, and Mr. Jay Beckett, our chief legal counsel. Before the board discusses this item for an action item, I do just simply have just a few remarks that I would like to share. The first, I just want to go on the record to say I appreciated the opportunity to go to the LPPC for just over 2 hours, that I had an opportunity to meet with them to be able to answer questions. I've also met with my parent advisory. I've also met with the executive team, and I also met with our principals just this week. But for the record, I want to be clear that some of the information that I've read in the minutes is incorrect. Some of the information is not to the level of depth or specificity in which I answered those questions during that day. So I just wanted to make that clear. You know, change is difficult. Change is emotional. I know that emotions are running very, very high in our school district ever since that I recommended such a reorganization plan for our school district. Change is uncomfortable. Change is difficult. But I firmly believe, as the leader of the school district, that it's absolutely necessary in order to move our school system forward. And I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children in the North Little Rock School District. You know, the current state of the North Little Rock, just under a year ago, April 15th, 2021, I presented in front of you the superintendent's 100-day transition plan summary report, made up of both quantitative and qualitative data. The data that's mentioned that was in 17, 18, and 19, as I presented to you, came directly out of that report, which is to currently show to the public what our trend data has been prior to my arrival into the organization. It also is a culmination of not only the quantitative but the qualitative data, and certainly having been a qualitative researcher myself, being able to listen attentively and to be able to have that ability to pick up themes, which is what I presented. There were 6 global themes that were presented with evidence based upon that, in which I shared before this body. Today, this evening, you had the opportunity to review some current data, whether that was discipline data, whether that was on the academic data. And I applaud all of our employees. I applaud all of our leaders and our district central office staff. Everybody is working hard. It's been another difficult year. It's a pandemic. We're hopefully going to get out of that soon. But I know how hard people are working. You heard that today. And we are making some gains. But you even heard it here today. We're not making the gains, the greater gains that we should. And I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children. You know, as a superintendent, I have a very unique advantage of having the 30,000-foot view of our school district. That's a pretty unique advantage. Everybody in an organization sees the organization from different levels. And I certainly have that advantage of seeing the big picture, of seeing the entire school system. And you know, as the leader, because I have that ability, I'm concerned. And when I mean I'm concerned, there are red flags to me, and there are warning signs that we must pay attention to. And if we don't change these warning signs, we're not moving in the right direction. Some of those include, as you know, declining enrollment over a 10-year period. Today, based upon the 21-22 map growth of NWA, our African American and our Hispanic student groups are projected to be in single digits for the Aspire and the performance level of exceeding. African American at 2.2%, Hispanic at 3.5%, and more than 50% in both student groups are projected to be identified as in need of support. African American at 63%, Hispanic students at 57%. This year, in fact, over 71% of high school students at the North Little Rock Academy are failing 2 or more courses. African American males, as you saw in the data, at all campuses are suspended disproportionately compared to other student groups during the 21-22 school year. The number of students enrolled in high school advanced classes are disproportionate in student groups. Although we've increased our graduation rate here recently at 84.9%, and you saw that was presented, is disproportionately lower among student groups. I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children in our district. As you know, we have 10 schools that are below a B report card rating based upon ESSA. Just this year, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, known as DESE, has their levels of support, has put the North Little Rock School District is currently in a level 4, which means district support status for our district literacy, based on 50% or more students scoring in need of support on the state's prior year summative assessment in reading. There are a total of 5 levels. Level 5 is intense support with direct commissioner recommendations. As you know, in DESE, which was mentioned here tonight, our comprehensive school that has been comprehensive in school improvement has been 7th Street Elementary School. And I've said to you many times, 7th Street Elementary School, by all academic performance, has been a failing school, underperforming school for nearly a decade. The DESE status of the additional targeted support and improvement, which is Boone Park Elementary School and Ridge Road Elementary School. I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children in the North Little Rock School District. As the top leader, it is my absolute job to advocate for 8,193 children. That is my job. I am hyper-focused on that job. I'm hyper-focused on the student groups that in some cases we're simply not serving. And as the top leader, I know I've only been here for 16 months. Dr. Hooper has joined me at 3 months, and I take full responsibility for the current state of this school system. I embrace accountability. I expect to be held accountable, and I expect to be held accountable to improve results. So I seek your support again this evening. I seek our support from our employees. I know this is difficult. I know change is hard.
Dr. Paluski, hang on one quick second. I know this is on YouTube, so we can always go back and watch YouTube. Recording without anyone's prior knowledge gives a perception that is something sneaky and underhand when it's already in a public forum. Please do not record because it gives an impression that you're being malice in this whole situation. It's on YouTube. Go to the internet, watch YouTube. Thank you so much. Go on, Dr. Paluski.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm seeking your support from our Board of Education. I'm seeking the support of our employees and our community for the reorganization and proposal. And in summary to that is to align our organization structure to meet the individual and different needs of schools. You heard that loud and clear here today. Our schools are different. They have different needs. To focus more on supporting principals with the instructional leadership skills required to drive continuous improvement. To focus even more support of classroom teachers with aligning curriculum, instruction, assessment, analyzing data, and professional development improve results. And to more effectively and efficiently deliver services to schools and intentional work aimed to improve student achievement. I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children. And in closing, I think these are big rock questions. Do we all believe that all children can achieve in the North Little Rock School District? Do we all believe that we will not allow a student achievement gap in our school district? Do we all believe that our children deserve better? Do we all believe that we have the courage, the strength to change, to adapt, to evolve, to better serve all students? And finally, do we believe that we all have a sense of urgency for all of our students in order to act now? For if not acting now, then when? Who do we serve? 8,193 students. And finally, I see this as a very pivotal moment in our school district. I see this as literally a watershed moment. The possibility of a turning point in this school district's future to improve it for all children. And I ask that we all unite to go on this journey together to improve the lives of every single child that we serve and change their educational trajectory and ultimately their future. I ask, who do we serve? 8,193 children in the North Little Rock School District. And remember, you just can't hide that charging wildcat pride.
Okay. At this time,
I have a question for Mr. Beckett. I know that the recommendation was to do it the way that we did it, and for future reference, if we have something that we need to do, is there anything legally that would prevent us from sitting down with someone before a presentation?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
Okay.
But I will say that the manner, I mean, I'm not involved in developing the need, rationale, or components of the reorganization plan. That's a matter that the educators should handle. As the district's lawyer, I'm involved in making sure that the plan is implemented in a manner that's consistent with and complies with applicable Arkansas law when districts do these kinds of things. And I'm convinced that we are in compliance with the law on this plan.
okay. Ms. Walker?
You finished?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You sure?
Uh-huh.
Because I got a few. I know you're not shocked. So tonight we heard lots of data on behavior, reading, math,
Sure.
all these great things. So with your plan, we're eliminating 4 positions, we're gaining 7 positions. But after hearing what I heard tonight, I'm hearing that we need support in the classrooms, paras, counselors, and dean of kids regarding security, if you will, discipline. So it's making me curious. It's making me wonder. It's making me question if this is the plan we need today, instead of possibly getting the plan that the teachers and the principals have requested this evening, first and foremost, before we do this. But going back, I also understand points, data, low-hanging fruit. I get it. I understand we're at level 4. Now, it's my understanding, Mr. Beckett, at level 5, does the state take us over?
They have the option to.
Okay, so I just wanted clarification. So we're at level 4, so we're red, if you will. And at level 5, I go home. Because if they take us over, I'm done. I'm done today, but I'm done. So with that being said, that scares the hell out of me. It's no secret I got 2 kids in this district. One's already graduated. I'm very loud about that. I'm a 3rd generation North Little Rock. I'm very loud about that. But it makes me wonder, makes me question where we're at and what we need tonight versus what we need tomorrow. So with that being said, can we pause? Can we take a minute? Can we look at the data that was supplied to us tonight? I'm all for change. I'm the one who screams it the loudest. I'm the one who screams at the rooftop with it. I'm all for change. But when children hold riots, and I'm calling it a riot because it disrupted my child's classroom time, but we called it a protest, we have an issue. When I have children who are not reading on grade level because we're on level red 4, that's a concern, that's an issue. But I'm still questioning after tonight's data, and I stayed up all hours of the night just like you, Mom, Miss Williams, sorry. Looking it over, making my notes. I have to question right now, is this what we need tonight? So, you know I'm the honest one, and you know I'm gonna ask the hard questions. So be honest with me, even with all the data that we've given and we've heard.
Sure. Look, I get this is, you know, obviously in some folks' eyes, this is an unpopular decision. But as a school district, you've hired me,
Yep.
and you're going to hold me accountable
Yep.
to the results of this school district. I would not come before you ever if I didn't believe in something that was going to change outcomes for children. This is directly targeted to more support principals and more support teachers.
Okay.
Systemically, I think Dr. Hooper could talk to this. We had a great discussion with our principals yesterday. Things that I heard in our meeting, and she can certainly, I heard if we're currently going to continue doing what we're doing, we're not going to change. We're making, and I believe one principal said, we're making inch gains. We need to make 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot gains. And from my vantage point, that 30,000 foot view, we can't waste 1 minute. And so when you talk about the needs of schools, and all of our principals, and I wanted to say this, thank you for this segue, have done an excellent job. We've asked them, this is the 2nd year they've done their principal presentations. They've done a wonderful job. They've come in with their data, their needs, and I will say as a district, and I appreciate the LPP saying this, we've become data focused in a short amount of time, and I'm proud of our district for doing that. They submit their needs. The next point is really the next upper level, which is, I've had concerns about our budgeting process, our how we look at positions, which the Gibson report should be up next month. We want to get those resources to schools. The challenge we face at the next level is where's that going to come from? Where do we shift things around? Principals want to say, well, I have this position, Mr. Paluski, but Dr. P, but can I reorganize it? Can I restructure it similar to what I'm proposing to meet their needs? We want to be able to provide them that flexibility. But we look at paras and all that deals with behavior. Those are good things. Those are supports. But it starts within, obviously, the classroom, and it starts with the teacher. And it's equipping the teacher with the support that's necessary. It's supporting the principal, more time with principals coaching. I will tell you, I've spent a lot of time at the high school this week, and I've spent a lot of time in a lot of schools, and I know our principals want extra help. They want extra support. We've done some great job on help. You heard that this evening. Mr. Clark did a great job about that. Getting into classrooms. That wasn't an expectation 16 months ago about getting into a classroom and making sure. I heard that from teachers that I interviewed. I don't see my administrator. There hasn't been an expectation. So we're training them, and we want to continue to train them and deepen their work so that we know what makes strong schools, strong leaders, and strong teachers. This plan is to support that, is to support strong principals and strong teacher leaders. We have some great things happening, but from my vantage point, we're all over the place. The system is not aligned, and by strategically aligning the systems and structures and supports, our principals talked the other day in the meeting. In fact, they mentioned, yes, we have a curriculum, and yes, I will always say we're moving in the right direction. Their words, not mine. It's not meeting all of our kids' needs. In fact, what we heard from principals yesterday is there's a disconnect in continuity between pre-K, elementary, middle school, and high school. This plan is to align those systems, and we have to start with literacy, obviously, and we've got to start with mathematics. We've got to continue to work on our data analysis. And so that is my level of urgency, and that is my my response to that. In my position, I don't believe we can wait. There's 180 days until we start the next school year.
Thank you. You through?
I'm done for tonight, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Webb?
As Ms. Williams so eloquently puts it, on a regular basis, that we have to let the person that we hired do the job. So, I find it just going through all of the information that we have here, because my loyalty doesn't lie necessarily with people that could be affected by this, but my loyalty lies with the 8,193 students that are in this district. And I can understand why some things may have been missed, and it could be that, whether people were necessarily in meetings when stuff was said, or how you put it in your own thought process or what have you. But I make sure that when you give out information, I make sure that I listen intently. I make sure that I listen, just make sure I don't have a whole bunch of distractions around me.
Sure.
I read the 100-day transition plan. What you're doing now was in the 100-day transition plan. That's what it is, a transition plan. And with the transition plan, that means that you transition to different ways of doing things. It's simple. So I didn't know necessarily what it was, but I knew that a change was gonna come. And for me, in my professional job, if my supervisor comes to me and says, Angela, we're getting ready to go a different direction, and you do not, you're gonna need basically tighten up in your position. Instead of me putting forth a fit about it, I need to look at myself and figure out what I can do to make Angela better. And the fact that we do know that you want talent right here in North Little Rock, that makes it all the more better.
Absolutely.
My sister is a teacher in this district. She was a student of North Little Rock School District. So my kids went through this district. So I get great joy and pleasure to see people that I know have gone through this district that have come back and decided to work here. So this ought to be a way to say, okay, I need to figure out what I can do better and what I can make myself better professionally and make my team better. So this is, I look at it, I wish we had this kind of, attendance at a lot of our workshop and board meetings. Sure. That would help, because that would help a lot of the information, from going out incorrect and not complete, and everybody will be here to get the same thing. So with phase 1, there's gonna come a phase 2. With phase 2, there might be a phase 3, I don't know. But this is an opportunity for everybody, custodians included. Tighten up. Tighten up. That's it.
Okay. Okay, to Mr. Beckett, Dr. Paluski,
Yes, ma'am.
and to you, our new deputy. First, I want to say, when you, one of the board members was speaking, there was no data that showed that this district did need to move up. If we're number 4, I'm embarrassed.
Beyond.
I'm embarrassed. And it's only a little bit. And you play with numbers talking about, well, it wasn't all the schools. Well, let's be for real. I am the darker sister. And it's our black schools that are not moving. And I have a problem with that. And I'm just going to be honest with you. And when there's no head, there's nothing but dangling feet. And we only had one administrator to come in 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm not going to even say his name because he's retired now, that turned over the district the same way that you're doing for the improvement, and he moved principals. So I'm saying to you, whomever's sitting out there listening to me, I'm just telling you how I feel as a board member. It's time to move forward. You have done more in 1 year than some of these former administrators been on here 5 or 2 or 3 years. And I appreciate the challenge. It's time to move. I'm embarrassed, totally. 80% of some of these schools, the kids can't read, and you're gonna sit up and argue about a reorganization? And let me remind you too, since our lawyer is here, that was a privilege for you, the LLPPC. Dr. Paluski was very kind. He didn't even have to give you 10 days on that. But like one of your members called me, Ms. Woodward, what we do? Read your policy, please. All of your members should have a policy. And she said, well, where is it? I said, it's on the web. You don't read. You don't follow policy. And with everything that Dr. Paluski did, he did it as an in-kind. Our lawyer here, Mr. Beckett, can tell you, he didn't have to do that. Anytime you have a reorganization of anything, all he had to do was present it and the board voted on it. But he wanted to have a voice. And I will not recognize your hand. I will talk to Mr. Beckett, okay? And then whatever the question is, he can answer it if I'm wrong, okay? And thank you very much. So, but anyway, my attitude is, I'm concerned about all students. There's not a black issue, there's not a white issue, it's a child's issue. And I heard in the report, when the report was made, it's all about the business. No, it's not. It's about the education of our children. Throw the business out, educating our children. And I love North Rock. I want the best for North Rock. I taught in North Rock, in every school in North Rock School District. And don't you know, as well as you, I want the best for our school district. The best. But we can't get the best being that a good old boys think this my buddy, so I won't vote against them. Forget your buddy and think about your children. That is my opinion.
Facts.
I love you, and ain't nothing I can do about it. And Dr. Pulaski, your goal is my goal, sir.
Thank you,
And
Ms.
thank you
Williams. Thank you,
for
Ms.
the
Williams.
presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
I can just piggyback because I just wanted to make it clear that this is my understanding, and I could be wrong. But basically, when we hire you, this is your purview. And as a school board and as a superintendent, we're supposed to set the, the view, the high view, and then we get everybody in on how that's implemented and all that. So I don't know if I'm reading that wrong, but you said that's correct, right? This didn't have to go to the LPPC, correct?
My advice was to run it through the LPPC out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that there was no argument later that we should have included the PPC in the process.
Right.
And then typically, not in this case, but in many cases where you reorganize, you're adjusting salary schedules, which are policies, which in those cases, you have to run it through the PPC, all right? And I discovered after the first board meeting that there was no need to adjust policies. So really, this was done out of an abundance of caution and as a courtesy, so that we followed that process to make sure there was no claim later that we should have run through PPC.
Okay.
Okay, as long as it's legal.
Yes.
It was legal, right?
It is.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, at this time, we need to make a motion, please.
We're gonna let Mr. Steele speak real quick. I think he has his hand up. No.
I have a motion at the proper time, but I will yield to you if you have a motion.
No, I was getting ready to make a motion, but I thought you had your hand up, ready to speak. But I will
yield.
make a motion, that we will accept.
But I did want to mention something. Madam President, I think it was somebody out here that had something to say, but
That
it's your
was
decision.
But he answered a question.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's up to the president, man. You got it.
Yes, what was your question?
It's clarification. So LPPC also received guidance from Mr. Beckett. The guidance from him to us was that this was in fact policy.
Okay.
It did in fact have to come through us. His understanding of the situation changed, which he did not reach back out to us. We did not find that out until Dr. Plusky met with us Monday evening. But last week, when we were game planning, and before I met with the committee, I had a supervised conversation with Mr. Beckett, who advised us that this in fact was policy, and because it was policy, the previous vote was null and void. That was the understanding we were operating under until Dr. Plusky clarified that salary schedules would not have to be adjusted because they are using the word coordinator.
Okay,
That clarification was not brought to our committee by
Okay.
Mr. Beckett, just for your information.
okay, thank you, and I thought he had explained it to you when he had just spoken. Forgive me, and thank you for your comments. Okay, Mr. Steele?
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to go ahead and accept item 4.3.
Please move it. I move.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I move that we go ahead and accept item number 4.3, the Central Office Administration Reorganization Plan, Phase 1.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second that we accept the Central Office Administration Reorganization Plan in Phase 1. Call the roll, Ms. Colquitt.
Ms. Temple,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Zakreski,
Abstain.
Ms. Kirsten West,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Steele.
Yes.
It has been moved and properly second, and we have, the motion has been received. We only had one that rescinded, which is automatically a no vote. And so with that, the motion is passed with 6 board members. Thank you. All in
you.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, all right. Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the employment of personnel
Yes, thank you.
as presented.
Where's the personnel? Where is he?
Oh, I don't know,
Jacob.
do you need
Jacob.
Jacob to?
No,
Okay.
Okay.
there's no clarification.
Personnel.
As presented in the executive session.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded.
Oh, Dr. Paluski's here on the personnel.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, the superintendent recommends the employment of personnel as discussed in executive closed session.
And it was moved and seconded.
Okay, it's moved, did it been moved? Did we have a second?
Yes, second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the personnel's, employment of personnel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. I now need a motion for adjournment.
No,
we have,
one more motion.
Oh, we got
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
amendment.
Yeah.
So,
Forgot.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, which we've added, this is action item 4.5, which was added, COVID-19 mask mandate. The superintendent recommends immediately that we go to optional masks in our school district.
Okay, optional.
Yes.
What's-
So I'd
Oh,
like-
we'll, first, and then we have to have the discussion.
Not that
after we
immediately.
First and seconded, okay?
Okay. Yes, Madam Chair, I move that we make the mask optional in North Little Rock School District effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? Call for the question, yes.
I just wanted to say one thing. Dr. Paluski, I know you're working on a resolution that was going to be presented at the next meeting. And if you feel like we still need a formal resolution to further outline things, I don't think there's any reason you wouldn't present that anyway, but that's up to you.
I would take the advice of the board if you want me to bring back a formal resolution or you all believe that that action would proceed and we would be fine, I would take your direction.
It doesn't matter to me. I was simply saying if you felt more comfortable putting something.
Did we, let me ask a quick question. Did we have the advice of our healthcare professionals?
Yeah, so we were planning to bring this on March 17th as an item. Our data has trended dramatically. We're down into single digits. I don't see any reason why we can't now go to optional masks. Again, if the pandemic comes back and we have a spike, then we can reconvene and therefore reinstitute a mask mandate. But I think at this time, to give employees and children the option, if they so choose to do so, I think is the right choice to make at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so any other further questions?
JT pretty much asked what I was going to ask. I'm
Okay,
good.
then.
I'm good.
So if the numbers go back up, it could come back. Let's just get that clarified.
Well, we would always bring that data back, just like we
Okay.
promised to our community that if we felt that the data was trending down.
I'm just
I just looked
making
at
sure.
it today. I mean, we're in like 3 for the entire district. So,
Oh, okay then.
So I feel comfortable, making that recommendation. But again, if
You done
another
already
spike
took yours
happens,
out.
we're going to have to reconvene.
Okay, so is that clear, Ms. Colquitt?
Somebody second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ms. Walker, second.
Ms. Temple,
Yes.
Ms. Lofgren,
Yes.
Mr. Zakreski,
Yes.
Ms. Carson West,
I guess. Oh, yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Still.
Yes.
Okay. The motion has been carried. And thank you. At this time,
Don't
we have
email
an
me no more.
adjournment.
Madam President.
Does everybody just takes them off?
We adjourn.
Well, I still got the option to wear it, so.
Now let's say this, if you feel like you need your mask in your classroom, by all means, wear your mask. In your classroom or your office. Now, I've gotten really good at not having folks too close to me without their mask, so, sometimes they real